Everybody, welcome to Sports Politics Agree to Disagree. Thank you for joining us, catching us live, catching the replays. We're going to do a quick around the room. My name is Alan Hinton. I'm your host for this afternoon. You can find me on Twitter, A-Flash79. Mr. Purvis.
Uh, Perfect Purpose. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat at Perfect Purpose.
Lance.
I'm Leonard Lynch Jr. Catch me at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that, all the same, at Lynch Jr.
Turner.
And John Turner. You can catch me on Facebook, Agree to Disagree, AJT, Twitter, Everybody Loves John, and I'm not a fan of Snap, and we can thank Draymond Green for that.
So we've all got a couple topics that we're going to talk about, and one that just kind of came up right before we started that we may get into depending on time. But we're going to start off. Lance is going to tell us a little bit about his thoughts about the media and how they portray players.
All right, so I'm taking a page out of AJT's book here. He's been railing on the media and media coverage since 2-3 years ago. So my thing is the media and how they cover athletes. You know, whenever there's an issue and whenever an athlete is in trouble, whether they're accused or something or they're just around something, you know, the athlete's getting bashed by the media, dragged through the mud, even before we have all the facts. And then once all the facts came out, if that athlete is vindicated and absolved of all wrongdoings, you hear nothing from the media. There's no talking about it. You might get a little ticker on the bottom of ESPN saying, "Oh, this didn't really happen. It was falsely accused." And that my issue with that comes with LaShawn McCoy in particular. With remember when he got into it at a club with a bunch of police. Well, his friends got into it with a bunch of off-duty cops. You know, and I hate that they say off-duty cops because if you're an off-duty cop, then that just means you're just a regular guy in the club. They weren't doing security. They were at the club popping bottles. That's what was happening. So they were out there doing that. They got into it with LaShawn's friends, and then because it was LaShawn McCoy, you know, it all blew up. So my problem with that is when that happened, people were going at him, oh, he's a thug. Why is he out in the club? Why is he doing this? Why is he doing that? He makes too much money to be in that type of atmosphere. He's an athlete in the club. What any regular people go to the club all the time. There's nothing stopping him from going to the club. Billionaires go to clubs. Thing is, he got into an incident. His friends got into an incident because he's the headliner. They went after him. Now, it all came out that he wasn't charged. He was cleared of all wrongdoing. As a matter of fact, the cops were held liable. From the DA's perspective, the cops were liable for the whole incident. So he was cleared, and then we hear nothing. We hear nothing about it. You don't hear anything about it. And then he has to come into camp, and that's the first question they're asked. And he's all apologetic about it, but he did nothing wrong. He's apologizing for doing nothing wrong. But then he said something, you know, that stuck to me, and it came to the fact that, you know, that no one's saying anything now. Now that he's been cleared, they're whispering about it. But when it was all coming out, it was everyone talked about it ad nauseum. So that's my issue with it. How media portrays these athletes when there's issues. Instead of waiting for the facts and waiting for everything to clear, everybody is quick to give their perspective because they want to be the first person. And that's what I had to say about that. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I like you said, you know, I've been talking about this for years. The biggest issue though is that something we're all aware of, negativity sells. And as long as negativity is going to sell, that's always going to be something that's going to be put on first. Because let's be honest, like we all tune in, we watch sports. Now I would like to think all of us are critical thinkers, you know, when it comes to sports, for sure. But then not everybody is. So what if you're ESPN and you have a multi-billion-dollar business that, you know, you get all this sponsorship and all of that and people watching, like what are they going to tune into? LaShawn McCoy in trouble or LaShawn McCoy doing something with a charity? Nobody's going to want to tune in to see about LaShawn McCoy, the charity, and the reason why is because, oh, LaShawn McCoy is a millionaire athlete. He should be doing that. We all know that they're not going to put that up there. The only time you see stuff like that is when it's the Make-A-Wish with the developmentally delayed kids that ESPN does to try to pimp them out, which I don't like anyway, and again, whatever. But unfortunately, until us as fans, all of us, not just us four, but until fans think more critically and can look past that, that's always going to be the case. Negativity is always going to sell.
I think the biggest issue with that, what you talk about, is that people only want to hear positive stuff when it affects them. They love to hear about a charity when that charity is coming around the corner from my house. But if LaShawn McCoy is doing something with a charity in Buffalo, I ain't in Buffalo. So that just goes back to me. I turn the TV off, and I'm still broke. And so for the most part, people just want to hear good stuff when it comes to them. And then on the other end of that, they like hearing when people mess up because they start to think, man, if I was in that situation, I would have done better. But the reality is everybody's different. Everybody's situation is different. We get into dumb stuff all the time just so nobody cares. And I kind of hate, just to talk back on one thing, it's kind of off of the topic, but something that you pointed out. I hate when people talk about athletes shouldn't be in a club. Now, I will say I am one of those people that believes that there are certain things that you shouldn't do as an athlete and a millionaire. Like if you're a $1 million athlete, you shouldn't have a gun. I'm not saying you should go out unarmed. I'm saying you should have a homeboy with a gun that sits right next to you, because there's no reason for you to and shoot yourself in the leg or get arrested and have a gun or no stuff like that. I'm saying you got enough money to have your homeboy who can take that charge, and then you pay his way out when he get out of prison. Don't mess up your own money because you're a millionaire. With that being said, if y'all remember, it had to be almost 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, something like that, when Ken Hamlin was at a club and he got hit with the guy pulled a parking sign and hit him with it and messed him up. He messed him up.
Fractured his skull.
The first thing you heard was, why was Ken Hamlin there? It's 2 a.m. He's a pro athlete. He should be at home. I work at a college, and I know people who work at my college that are out at 2 a.m. and still making it work the next day. So,
yep.
So no profession makes you beyond, wanting to go out and have a good time. It sucks that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. But it wasn't like Ken Hamlin was in a fight and he was running around punching people in the face. He just happened to be in a club with some stuff happen. Yeah, you don't want to put yourself in that situation. I understand that. But at the same time, they still have to have the opportunity to be human beings. And I hate that more than anything, the media doesn't allow that to happen. I feel like being an athlete, accepting $1 million contract does come with some expectations, but that expectation shouldn't be that you spend 100% of your time being an athlete. To further jump off the topic, Robert Griffin posted a picture last year. Sorry, about to sneeze. Nope. Posted a picture last year. He posted a picture last year of him at a golf course or something like that, and people were commenting, you should be working on your foot, your motion, your throwing motion, your mechanics, your step backs. I'm just like, so we don't know he did that yesterday? Like, just because he's at a golf tournament now doesn't mean he stopped caring about being a quarterback. It means that somebody said, hey, come play golf, and he was with it. And I've never been a fan of that. I don't know. You got anything to say, Bird?
Yeah, I want to jump in on there a little bit too, see what y'all talking about. I think with the media, I mean, it's pretty obvious what's happening is it's the evolution of media. When sports were first being covered, you were getting just stats, what happened, and then it evolved to you're getting stats and a little commentary. And athletes were put on this pedestal, like, hey, these are our heroes. These are the people we want our kids to look up to. So a lot of feel-good stories. When you hear about, like, old school, like, football players, basketball players, baseball players, you hear all these great things about them because that's how they were covered. And then we evolved into this, well, I want to know what's going on in the athletes' lives. And once we got there, that's when it split. At first, there was a long period of, like, we wanted to, be like Mike, and we wanted to see what he did on a regular basis. and see all this good stuff he did outside of the sport. And then it turned into, well, I'm not sure if I even like the way these guys are going out to clubs and partying, because now I know that's what they do in their free time because media is covering so much of their lives. And now we're at a point now with social media that people feel that, like, okay, you're an athlete, so I'm going to put you on a pedestal and say, hey, you need to be held to a higher standard than normal people, but you're just a normal person, so you have flaws just like me. And what people are focusing on are the flaws. People are focusing on the negativity of what a small percentage of athletes are doing, and that's what people are liking right now. Negativity is in. Like you said, negativity sells. And you can see it from just an objective, like, long-range view. It's what's happened over time. We've completed the cycle. Hopefully, if we get back into the whole, like, we're looking for a great person and we want athletes to be heroes again. But right now, there's a divide between the actual media outlets and the athletes. Just like Lynch was saying earlier, you have LaShawn McCoy. He had a situation. The media ripped him. But when the situation was cleared and he was basically found not guilty or never was guilty of any wrongdoing, the media, he actually attacked the media back. He said, hey, it kind of sucks that when I was down or y'all thought I was wrong, y'all were at my throat, and now I don't get anything from you. And I know he wasn't personally, like, attacking them or anything like that, but it just shows the divide between the athletes and the media. Because when he says something like that, me as just a fan, I'm gonna say good for you, LaShawn. I'm glad you said what was on your mind. But you're gonna have some reporter out there that's like, oh, he thinks that he can just talk to reporters how he wants to. Let me go find some dirt on him. And that's the problem with the way that the media and the athletes are going right now.
But I think, and here's I don't want to say it's an issue, but here's why. Because athletes are more in control over what they put out to the media now. Now with Twitter, now with Facebook, and with Snap, they break their own news. You have the Players Tribune, where Kevin Durant put where he was going to the Warriors. LeBron did the whole Sports Illustrated thing, but now they're able to control what they're able to put out now. That's why you have all of these news outlets, that follow all of the athletes, so they can try to glean from their social media pages, and then they report on the stuff, even though the athlete put it out first. And I think now the athletes are taking more control over their brands and what they put out. I think the media is a bit resentful of that, because now if an athlete does something and they go and put it on Twitter first, this is what happened, the media can't spin it. Hey, they can't spin it. It's already out there. You know what I mean? And I honestly think that so what happens is that once they put it out there and once the media can't spin it, I honestly feel that there's a level of disgust, a level of frustration, because now they can't report the news themselves. And that's what they're all about. News media is sharks, and they want to break the news all the time. And when they can't, that's when they start putting out more negative stuff and leaving the positive aside.
Yeah, that's true. And I think going back to one thing that Purvis said, the vast majority of athletes aren't getting in trouble. There's only a handful of athletes in each sport that have really caused problems. Some of those guys get arrested a bunch of times, but it isn't like 60% of the league is getting arrested and having all these kind of issues, failing drug tests, so on and so forth. And I think that we really need to, I guess, focus more on that, the fact that it's not the majority of people. On the note, one of the things I mentioned, failing drug tests, Purvis is going to talk a little bit about the Russian doping issue.
All right. So yeah, I was trying to get a pause, man. I don't care. I needed a pause. What's going on in Russia right now is it's been proven that the country has actually been doping their athletes for sports. Um, the issue that's happening is that there was a runner, a long distance runner. I think her name is Yulia Stepanova, if I'm saying that correctly. She basically broke the story wide open in 2011. 2011, she was banned for 2 years for doping, and she sat out her ban. But in 2014, she started recording things that were going on between her coaches and government officials involved in the sporting world out there. And basically, I'm trying to like dumb it down without going into all the details, like making it too technical. Basically, Russia was having athletes, and they were giving them drugs and different illegal performance enhancing items to make them more competitive in their different sports, and they were, or I want to say they were tainting the results of the drug tests. She actually was. Her husband worked for the anti-doping commission in Russia, and he claimed, and he actually was an eyewitness saying that he had calls to his office where people would ask who failed the test, and if it was someone important, then they would let it be okay that person failed the test. If it was not someone important, they let it go. But if it was someone who was like up and coming and who could be a medal winner in the future or something like that, they decided to not let it be reported, and it never was shown that that person failed a drug test. And basically, the whole country is doing this, and the Olympics finds out it's been proven in court that this is what the country is doing, and the Olympics says, okay, we're going to ban Russia until they found out how much money they would lose by doing that. And when they found out about that financial situation, the head of the Olympic Committee decided to, instead of banning the whole country, they let every sports international federation decide if the Russians could participate or not in those different events. And so far, Russia had almost 300 athletes qualify for the Olympics, and right now only 250 can actually participate because of the slight ban by certain federations. I know it sounds confusing, so ask me questions I can answer it better.
I just think it's amazing that an entire country is sanctioning this doping ring when we got people here in America getting mad about individual athletes doping, taking PEDs, and we got a whole country over there. And the funniest thing to me is they had this doping ring and still didn't win. Like how does that happen? Then they got like what, third or fourth or something like that. I mean they were on the medal stand, but still, man, it was amazing to me. And Purvis is in Finland, so he's hearing all this constantly. And I didn't really start paying attention to it till the whole Sharapova came out, and she said they were going after her because she was doping. And I was like, oh, why is she doping? Then to find out there was a couple other people doping. I was like, man, like how many people are doping? Is it all of Russia? Then it comes out that it is all of Russia that's doping. And it was just amazing to me, like how that happens, and it goes under the radar. And then, like Purvis said, it comes down. Essentially, it comes down to the money. Like it comes down to the money. When you get these guys who are winning, you got to weigh risk and reward. Everybody has that pride for their country. They want to stand up for their country. Want to wave the American flag. If you find out that, hey, you can win the Olympics, you can get guys who place, and you can drug, I'm sure people will be like, oh, well, it's not that bad. It's bad when it happens to someone else. You might not get caught, but it's still, it comes down to the money and everything. Just to parlay that into the Rio Olympics this year, it's just amazing that they're allowing them to come knowing that they're doping. And these countries aren't going to turn them right because if you say, oh, yeah, let's not let Russia in, they're going to, well, let's take a look at you. How many people on your team is doping? And I just feel like that played a part in it as well.
That's it. That's it exactly.
So I got three thoughts on the situation. I kind of also agree that it's hilarious that they have been doping as a country and nobody won. But my question is, right now, every country that is involved in the Olympics has some kind of national Olympic organization. America has the IOC. How much involvement in those organizations do other countries have? Should the larger Olympic governing board put people from other countries in each one to kind of make sure these things aren't happening? Would that even make a difference?
Well,
and should
the issue that there is that there's an international federation for each sport that's in the Olympics, and on these boards there are people from other countries, but what the Russians have been doing is bribing these people. The OIC that actually like oversaw what the Russians were doing, a lot of them were from countries like, I want to say, Turkey, Ukraine, Germany, a lot of European countries. And basically what Russia was doing was they're letting their people pass the drug test and then like bribing the head officials so that it's not being seen. And what people aren't realizing is the Olympics, the Olympic committee that oversees all of this, of who gets into the games and whatnot, they have to be involved for that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And what they're doing is, if they try to ban all Russia has to do is say, hey, for the last 10 years, you've been letting us get away with this. And just because she caught us, now you're saying that we can't have anybody in? Yep. And that would blow probably the whole Olympics up. And that's what people aren't seeing. When they see on the headlines, they see Russia is doping. Russia is doping. Yeah, Russia is doping, but I'm going to put this out there. They're not the only ones doping. They're the only ones that got caught. And the reason they got caught is because one of their people who was doping got caught, and she decided that it was fucked up, excuse my language, and she got caught by the people who were making her dope. If you read her testimonies, she didn't ask to take these drugs. Her coaches said, you're going to get with the program or you're not going to be on the team. So she was doing that and expecting that, hey, if I'm with the program, I'm not going to fail any tests because I'm with the program. But apparently she fell out of favor with the program, and she came across the test being positive. So after that, she's a whistleblower. She's living in the United States right now, hiding. No one knows where she lives because her life is in danger for blowing the whistle against a whole country, a country that she loves. But she said the way that they're doing the sports is illegal and they should be held accountable. What the Olympics is saying is, you're right, but we're going to let these other federations, which we ultimately are above and they're under our umbrella, we're going to let them decide individually what sports and what players can and cannot participate. And what they came to a conclusion was that the entire wrestling team from Russia isn't going to be able to go. The majority of the rowing team isn't going to be able to go. They had 68 track and field athletes qualify. Only one of them, one long jumper, is going to be allowed to go to Rio. Those are just some stats.
Out of 300, 250 aren't going to the Olympics or are?
250 are. But they're not in like the major sports that you're going to see and be covered more often. They're not in the sports that people are going to be cheating in with performance-enhancing drugs like you're expecting. Track and field is the main draw, and they only have one athlete. That's where most of it was going on. And then you have like the physical sports. Their wrestling team, almost none of them are allowed to go. Their rowing team, I think 6 out of like 20 were allowed to go. And the stipulation is if they've ever failed a drug test, they're not going to be allowed to go at all. The person who was the whistleblower, the Stepanova girl, she can't go because she failed a drug test. She admitted she failed a drug test. She passed all the protocol for after failing a drug test, and she couldn't go. And in the United States, you have people like Gatlin who failed a drug test, served a suspension. He's going to be in the finals. So the Olympics is doing it wrong somewhere because I see they're trying to like be fair by saying, hey, your country is messing it up, but at the same time, they're being very inaccurate about how they want to punish certain people. It's just a really bad situation. I think the light should be shown more towards what the Olympics is doing instead of just saying, "Oh, well, this whole country is doping." I mean, that's bad, but I think there's a deeper issue that people don't see.
So what would you suggest on how to fix it?
What the way I would suggest is to only let the screening processes be done by third party companies that aren't affiliated. Because right now there's always some type of affiliation, and that's how you get into bribery and things like that going from different countries. Basically, if you pass enough enough drug tests, then you can just start doping and not worry about going to any more meets because you qualified and you passed the right test and you're good. But if there's always a independent company coming in to do the drug test and it's random and put to a certain parameters of when it can be done, then you can't really cheat the system. And the problem with that is that it's so widespread. It's the whole world. And you can't have
Yeah.
one company doing it. And they don't have one company doing it right now. But the problem is with there being so many different outlets of how to do your drug test, so many companies of where you can get them done, that it's possible that countries like Russia can basically set up a whole scheme of, hey, we're going to cheat the system. And now that they've been caught, I still think they're going to still try to cheat the system. They're just going to try to figure out a better way to do it.
Yeah, and to me, I think, like you said, because it's the entire world that's participating in all of this, it's hard to get an independent company. I feel like they should just get like most people do when they want something, they get just have a representative from every country a part of it. That way, there's type of checks and balances because we're all in it together. But at the same time, it still can be bribed. You can send someone who's corrupt. It's just hard to get a hold on all of it because you can't really. I mean, you trying to you want everybody to participate because there's so much money going into it. And then on top of that, if you win to host the event and there's people just to be in there and a lot of political motivation that comes into it, it's just so much that gets wrapped around it because so many countries, the heads of their countries are trying to talk, when they're talking back and forth, it's just everything that comes with it is just so political and it's not gonna, it's to think that it's just one country that's doping, like you said, Purvis, they're just the only ones that got caught. That's just like, you want to take it, liken it back to the NFL or the NBA or MLB. It's not one person that's doping. It's not, oh, these 5 people got caught doping. No, it's everybody's doping. These are the people who got caught. And that's essentially this is what this is. It's just on a worldwide scale.
Is it naive of me to assume or to imagine that there's only that aren't other countries that are entire countries doing this? Like, I, for one, when I heard about the whole country doing it, was surprised. Yeah, I agree with you that there's a lot of people in the Olympics that are doping, but I don't, in my mind, think that multiple countries are willing or capable of doing something like this. And maybe that is naive of me. I don't know.
I'm going to talk on that a little bit.
That did surprise me.
I think
that surprised me.
You made a good point that not all countries can do it because not all countries are financially able. The reason Russia can do it is because they have the money to do it. They have the money to have the facilities, to facilitate the drugs, to tamper with the tests, to bribe the highest officials necessary to get things overlooked. Smaller countries don't have that. And then you have bigger countries who obviously don't feel the need to, depending on how your country is set up. I mean, the United States, that'd be something really hard to keep on the hush-hush in the whole country. Russia is a little bit different. They do things differently around there. You're either with the system or you're not. There ain't no whole too much to it. And if you tell on people, you have to leave the country and hope that you don't get caught in another country. I don't know. But I think that has a lot to do with it is that Russia had the means to do it, so they did it. The thing is, how can you stop a country with the means? It's not hard to stop a small country. If a country like even a country like Lithuania, Latvia, Ukraine, or something, if they did this and got caught, the Olympics would be like, your whole country's out. That'd be the end of it. It'd be a small article. You never hear about it again. That'd be the end of it because those countries don't have the financial or political power of a country like Russia. But Russia is a big boy, so you can't just ban a big boy from the big boy table. You know, so that's why there's something down there. I mean, I'm not a reporter, so obviously I don't know what it is, but it seems shady. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. If an entire country is doping, there should be something done about that besides letting individual groups decide who can and cannot participate in the Olympics. It just makes me think that the Olympics has something to do with this doping. That's the only way that they don't ban that whole country.
And I think they did have something to do with it, but I think it's more to the fact that I feel like they already knew, like they were aware of this already, that this doping was going on. And I think because Russia is such a superpower that it's like what are you gonna do? You're gonna kick Russia out? It's like kicking the U.S. out. If the U.S. isn't running a drug ring, are you gonna kick us all out? And now U.S. can't be a part of it. It's not gonna happen. It's one of the superpowers. Like you said, there's 206 countries participating in the Olympics this year. Not all of those are participating in everything. So once you have these big countries that have the ability to participate in everything and all the events like Russia does, that's where you get this at where they can do this and there be no issues. It's basically the big bully saying, well, what are you going to do to me? And that's basically what Russia's doing. We did it, we did it, now what are you going to do?
Now that he's been quiet for the last 15, 20 minutes, we'll let Turner get in his topic and talk about Andre Johnson and veteran leadership on a larger scale.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Andre Johnson was just brought in by the Tennessee Titans the other day, a couple of days ago, and this is something that really it made me upset. To be honest with you, I for the life of me, I don't understand why teams consistently bring in old, past their prime, name brand players to their football teams, and they haven't done anything to deserve that other than based on past performance. So, excuse me, Andre Johnson. What I'm a Colts fan, so full disclosure there. Andre Johnson was a corpse for us last year. He couldn't separate from anybody, nobody at all. He couldn't get open. He couldn't catch the ball once the ball got to him. He was never the most refined route runner, but that has actually gone down as well. He basically was not a productive wide receiver last year, and he really looked like he was done. So then what do the Tennessee Titans do? Oh, let's bring him in for the veteran leadership, the veteran experience. And this is something that teams, for some reason, and I don't understand why they continue to do this. Now, I'm looking up the Tennessee Titans depth chart for their wide receivers, and I'll include their tight ends as well. So, Dorial Green-Beckham, I think LRL mentioned him a few podcasts back, but he's a beast, 6'5", 237, not the fastest, but he'll go up and get the ball. He definitely needs reps. Justin Hunter, I actually played against him in the Fieldhouse Basketball League when he was down here because he's from here, and I mean that's probably the best athlete I've ever seen in person. That I've seen in person. Like he almost dunked. Well, he dunked on one of my boys effortlessly. I mean, but he's a guy who needs reps. Then you still have Kendall right there, and then you have Delaney Walker, who had a stud season last year as a tight end, and that's just 3 mouths to feed. And then you have the stud and Mariota at quarterback. So you don't need to be taking reps from any of these other guys that are on the team to give reps to Andre Johnson. He had 41, 503, and 4 TDs last year. Luck didn't always play last year, so okay. And I'm a stat guy, but just from looking at him play last year, he looked done. And I don't like the fact that the Tennessee Titans are just another team to fall victim of the veteran leadership and the veteran experience. I feel like stop taking the reps from the young boys and let the young boys work. There's no need to give Andre Johnson reps on that team. Maybe on a team that's contending for a championship that needs a fourth receiver, okay, fine. But on this particular team, I hate it. I hate it. I hate it.
Me and Purvis were talking about this a little bit, before we got started. When you look at Tennessee's roster, their receiving core, they've got, not counting Andre Johnson, I'm looking at the roster right now, they got one receiver that's in his 30s. The next closest is Kendall Wright, who's 26, and Rashard Matthews, who's 26.
Rashard Matthews, yep.
Neither one of those guys are very refined for their technique. But really, before last year, nobody knew who Rashard Matthews was. You got a lot of receivers on that team. Green Beckham, Justin Hunter are both guys who are physically really gifted, but aren't very skilled as receivers. If anything, I don't personally think Andre Johnson's going to make the team. So I'm going to start there. I would honestly be surprised if he made the team, but to have a guy who is still somewhat physically capable, he's not some 38, 40-year-old receiver who's now out of shape and can't run routes anymore. To have a guy who's still in football shape, still around and able to physically go out and show you how to do it, I think there's value, especially for a guy like Green Beckham, because I think physically he's kind of similar to Andre Johnson. He's bigger and not as fast, but his ideal would be that same type of receiver. A guy who uses his body more than anything, who you can't really cover, who can post up. He can't really do that right now. And who better to show him than a guy who his ideal comparison would be? Even if he doesn't make the team, if he can get in there and show those receivers how to play, I don't think there's a team in the league that has more receivers athletically you're excited about, but who don't really have the skill. This is the perfect place for a guy like Andre Johnson to come in, work with the young guys, and actually show. That's what the veteran leadership thing is. It's not that they're just going to get better because he's there, or I wouldn't be too concerned about him stealing snaps from those guys. The reality is when he does play, when he does practice, whatever you see, those kids are going to be in there with him and learning and being able to go out, do the same things, and have him on the spot correcting them, so on and so forth. And in the preseason, he'll go out there and get some reps, hopefully not get hurt. But like I said, I don't think he's going to make the team, so it doesn't really hurt. But the closeness of having him in there, even more so being closer than a position coach, he's right there with them at all points, and they're going to learn so much from them if he takes to actually teaching these guys. Me and Purvis was talking about it earlier, and he talked about Peyton Manning when he was on the Colts, and he didn't go out of his way to teach the guys behind him how to do anything. If Johnson has a different attitude than that, they're going to learn so much just by his presence. It doesn't really matter. Yes, I agree with you that he's done. As an Andre Johnson fan, I'm probably the biggest Andre Johnson fan that is in our group. It hurt watching him try to play last year, because I can't even say try to play last year. But seeing what he used to be and still knows how to do is going to help guys like, I think, Beckham Green more than anybody.
I'm gonna jump in on here too, man. I think Andre Johnson, I'm not sure how much veteran leadership you could say he's gonna bring, but I kind of agree with you, Alan, that him being there, this is a good situation for him and that team. Those players, they need the reps, but them just having reps isn't going to make them better right away. And their team is in a position where it could actually make some noise in that division a little bit. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to have him kind of be like the glue type receiver for them for this season. If he makes the team, he's going to be there to show when he can, help the younger players see that it can be done, and kind of just teach them how to be professionals with the 16-game season and playoffs if they make playoffs. I don't think the Titans are going to make playoffs. It makes no sense. But I think that Andre Johnson gives them what they need right now. this isn't like Andre Johnson's going to be there for the next 3 years. I think it's a one-off season for him. I think he shows that he has a little bit left. With his injury problems, he probably doesn't finish the season, and he quietly walks away. But I think he gives them a little bit of him, just enough that those players can kind of understand a little bit of what it takes to be a real NFL receiver and the different things you're going to have to do. I think it's a win-win situation. I think talking about veteran leadership in general, just going away from the Andre Johnson situation specifically, veteran leadership I think it's a myth. I think veteran leadership is a myth. You don't have to be a veteran to show leadership. I think what you're looking for is actual leadership. There's some veterans who can play. They can play, but that doesn't mean they're leaders. There's some veterans who they can lead, but they can't play. So how are you going to use them on your team? I think veteran leadership is just a phrase that sportscasters use to make up for the fact that they don't know why people are putting these old ass dudes on the team.
Yeah, and my thing is I like him on the team just for the fact that, as I said, there's a lot of young guys on that team, a lot of young, talented guys, but not anyone who's been around. That does help to navigate some, and plus that he's been in that division for 13, 14 years now. That helps as well. But the fact that I think he's more of a presence, like a security blanket for Marcus Mariota, as he develops, because you can't have a young quarterback trying to develop. Your top 3 receivers are all young receivers still trying to develop, with Beckham, Green, and Kendall, and I guess Justin Hunter is the third guy. I'm not sure who the third guy is, but I know they got Delaney Walker, who's also there, but he's a good help. But you got all these guys who are still trying to figure it out on the team, and their whole team is young. So you got to have an old guy there who can, when you need that 4-yard catch on 3rd and 3, when you need that extra block to help spring your running back. They have a really young, talented team, but they don't have a really good mix of young guys with older guys. And I think that's where they try to bring him in. The veteran leadership, I agree, is a little bit overrated. I mean, you don't really have to have that, but it does help somewhat. As long as you got good coaching on there, the guys are going to learn. And then the veteran leadership only comes into play, really, when you got knuckleheads on the team, when you need someone to yoke somebody up. But if you got a good roster of guys who got their head together, because you don't really hear too much about Titans players getting in trouble. It's not like it's the Jaguars, but it's not that big of a deal. I like him simply because he's never really been that take the top off type of guy. He has decent speed, but he's always been a guy who can make those catches that are when you got guys hanging on your back. He's like, 6'3"? So he's used to making those grabs with DBs on his back. I think what also helps him is he's played with terrible quarterbacks his entire career. So it's not like he needs a great quarterback to be successful. Andre Johnson played with Brian Hoyer and Case Keenum, T.J. Yates, and he's still putting up these numbers. So I think it's having him there is just to help soothe or ease the maturity process for Marcus Mariota, who's also still trying to learn to throw from the pocket. He didn't really do that as much at Oregon, so he's still trying to learn. You just need, and Delaney Walker, I believe someone said something about Delaney Walker before. He's good to have too, but his injuries, his hot-headedness, Delaney Walker, he might not be there. He might get suspended. You don't know what's going to happen. So just having another presence there with Green Beckham, he missed a year because he got in trouble. He couldn't play. So I think he's going to be great because his size and his speed is ridiculous. But he still has to develop, and that's how I feel about that.
But my thing is, this was also the team that didn't use Randy Moss when Randy Moss was there. So my thing is, if you're not going to use Randy Moss, and Randy Moss was still a great athlete, like, let's be clear, like, he wasn't 23 touchdown Randy Moss, but he was still, I can get deep and score a touchdown if you put the ball on time Randy Moss. So, and again, that was 2010. That was 6 years ago. Titans do have new management now, but I feel like the ownership is the same. So if you didn't use that Randy Moss, who was still superior athletically, why bring Andre Johnson in? Like, you just refused to use Randy Moss at all. Like, you had him running across the middle, and I think it was overrated that he couldn't go across the middle. He could, but his strength was obviously getting deep down the field. Like, they had him running all kinds of drag routes and things like this, and not trying to take advantage of the fact that he could still get down the field. So I feel like if you didn't use Moss, why bring Andre Johnson in now? What's the point?
Because now you have Marcus Mariota at quarterback. That the quarterbacks in 2010 were Vince Young and Kerry Collins and Rusty Smith. Who's going to throw the deep ball to him? Who's going to get him the ball? There's no one to get him the ball. They have someone to give him the ball now, but at the same time, Randy Moss wasn't trying to play for them either. So it goes with, we all know Randy Moss plays when Randy Moss wants to play. If he wanted to make moves and get it in, he would have got it in. He wasn't trying to play for them.
There's literally probably 2 receivers on that team right now that were in the league when Randy Moss was on this team. I think that's part of the reason why you have Andre Johnson here. Everybody on that team is so young, and Harry Douglas being your most experienced receiver, in my mind, is a problem. I honestly don't understand how Harry Douglas has made it in the league as long as he has, which is neither here nor there. But you need somebody, and one of the things that Purvis talked about was to teach these guys how to be a professional. And if your example on how to be a professional, how to train to be a pro NFL athlete is Harry Douglas, how exciting is that? Like, I don't see that being a guy who's a good example. Obviously, I'm probably the only person in this conversation who believes in veteran leadership, but the young guys have to look to somebody, and coaching does do a lot of that. I agree, but sometimes you need that guy who's right there in the locker room at all times. And I wouldn't trust Harry Douglas to be the guy teaching my young guys how to be professionals. I think has always benefited from being around better receivers. I don't understand how he's still playing football.
I think y'all are confusing some things. What y'all are forgetting is Andre Johnson is not going to play a full season, no matter where he's at. The dude, his body can't handle it. He plays too physical. He's going to be there for a little bit. They're not going to – I don't know what his contract numbers are, but I doubt they're paying him a ton of money. But if they have the cap to have him come in and he can help those players develop, even if it's only for 4 or 5 games that he actually, like, gets to play and actually goes on the field, if it helps them, then it's no problem doing it. But it's not like this is a long-term solution for them or anything like that.
And I believe in veteran leadership. I think trying to use that as a reason to sign a guy is overrated. Like, you can't just have a whole bunch of young guys on the team. That's not going to work. You've got to have a good, healthy mixture. Like, if you look at the Rams, if they had a young squad for so long that you would think that they'd get some veterans in there and they'd be better. At least get a quarterback who can actually throw the ball. But it's. I think you got to have a good mix.
I mean, I was gonna say, I think the fact that they didn't have a quarterback was the bigger issue with the Rams, as opposed to the veteran leadership thing. I just feel like it's an excuse for teams just to sign older guys that are past their prime and past the point where they're helpful to NFL teams. And I think that point for Andre Johnson was last year.
I agree with that.
You may agree. I agree with
Well,
that.
I don't know, because I had people telling me that Larry Fitzgerald was done, and Larry Fitzgerald went up there and balled last year.
So
That's my guy.
Okay,
That's
wait
my
a minute.
guy. I ain't gonna point no elbows, no point no fingers or nothing.
Okay,
I'm just saying.
so full disclosure, for the people who are watching and for the people who will watch, I said Larry was done, and in my defense, Larry Fitzgerald's stats had declined. I don't want to say precipitously, but just watching him play, it was clear to me that it wasn't all the quarterback's fault that his production had dropped. Now, I gave him credit last year. He balled out last year. He was still doing this short underneath thing, but he made some phenomenal catches last year, and he dominated in the playoffs. I absolutely give him credit for that. I'm not gonna take it, but yeah, I mean his stats dropped for 3 straight years. Yeah, I mean that wasn't all because of the quarterbacks he was playing with. He couldn't separate.
But they didn't.
But they did, and
No,
not
they
just.
didn't.
But they did.
Look, bro. 2012, it had 71 catches, 800 yards. 2013, 82 catches, 950 yards, 10 touchdowns. 2014, he dropped to 63 with 780 yards. And then last year he balled out. Like, he had that one bad year in 2014. It wasn't up to his normal 1,400 yards a season. I mean, who's gonna do that for 4 or 5 straight years? Like
Calvin Johnson.
I mean,
where is he now?
Yeah, but I feel like
retired like you should be.
Yeah, I feel like though that you also have to look at the targets too. Like the year he had the 71 catches, it took him 156 targets just to get the 71 catches. That's less than 50%. That's not all on the quarterback. Like again, he played with some bad ones. I agree with that, but that's not all on the quarterback. He did rebound back to 82 on 135 targets and then 103 for 63, and he only played 14 games. And last year he was more or less back to himself. He only averaged 11.1 yards per catch. To me, that's part of the decline, even though that's a vertical offense, but he only averaged 11.1 yards per catch. But yes, I would say that that's a bounce back season.
He's not a vertical player.
Yeah, but he's had seasons. He's had a season where he's averaged 17.6, 14.1, 14.9, 13.7. So, again, that's a decline. Football production is very volatile. So, because it is, again, though looking at the stats plus what I see, it looked like a receiver who was on the decline.
I get that. All I'm saying is, if you got John Skelton, Kevin Cobb, Ryan Lindley, and Brian Hoyer throwing you the ball, you ain't gonna do too much. Targets only means they threw him the ball. That don't mean it was accurately thrown balls. It just means that it was thrown to him.
You're right, and I should pull up PFF for catchable targets. I'll just point out, Josh Gordon had his best season. And who was his quarterback then? Was it Brian? It wasn't Brian Hoyer, was it?
It was Brian Hoyer.
It was Luke, wasn't it? One of the McCown brothers?
It was Luke McCown, right? So, like, to me, like, Calvin Johnson
he was smoking, though, so it was different. He didn't have to worry about nothing. He was high.
Like, Calvin Johnson is proof.
Calvin Johnson's not fair because he's 7,000 feet tall.
I mean, but my point is, he had the millstone around his neck called Matthew Stafford. Like, wide receivers can produce with bad quarterbacks is all I'm saying. That's it. And my point with Larry was he needed a specific quarterback to manage his type of route run, his type of style. He's not going to beat you deep. He's a technician on the routes, has great hands, but he doesn't always get separation. So he needed a wide receiver to make pinpoint throws, and because a lot of his catches are contested. That's essentially all I'm saying there. And because he clearly didn't have those quarterbacks, that just showed, I don't want to say the flaws, but that just showed the weaknesses in his game, I guess you could say.
I'd rather you say flaws than weaknesses.
Okay, flaws. But yeah, that just showed that a little bit because
I know he did decline. You could clearly see, but I just feel like guys like that who don't have to rely on their athleticism as much, they tend to age better and can still produce. Whereas a guy like that's a speed demon who relies on their speed every single year, they don't age as well. I don't know, we like all off topic now.
Pause. All right, we good.
Man, you weren't supposed to
That was
do that
a
out
very, very, very intentional pause.
Like, you weren't supposed to do that out loud, bro. Like,
It's all fun.
The Browns quarterback in 2013 was Brandon Weeden, Alex Tanney, Brian Hoyer,
that makes
Jason
it
Campbell.
that makes it even worse. Josh Gordon had one of the recent best seasons in NFL recent memory with Brandon Wheaton throwing the passes. Come on, man.
Brandon Wheaton can throw, though. Brandon Wheaton can throw, man.
No, he can't. No, he can't.
Okay.
It was mostly Jason Campbell.
Was it?
Yeah, he put up 2,000 yards. He got a raw deal, man.
Yeah, he did. I feel like his whole career.
Man, he was going to be good.
I don't know, man. He was scared to throw the ball down the field.
We messed him up to an extent.
Y'all did.
Anyone who played for that Washington team gets messed up.
Yeah. Look at RG, and now he's on the Browns. So that ain't. Yeah.
We got another topic.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I'll make it a quick one though. I'll make it a quick one. Hold on. So let's for a second. The last topic is mine, and I wanted to talk about quarterbacks in the NFL playing longer because of the rules, the game being a lot less physical, I guess I'll say, and I think it's bad for their teams and the young guys behind them. Last year there were 6 at the start of the season. Josh McCown is included in that. Obviously, he didn't finish the season. But there are 6 quarterbacks going into the league last year that were 35 or older. Obviously, Peyton Manning was 39 or 40, I guess, when the season started, and he's the only one that retired. Everybody else that was on that list is back. Josh McCown obviously isn't starting or shouldn't start. I don't know. We'll see what happens in Cleveland. Cleveland doesn't make any sense. But the majority of those guys that were on that list have backups in place. The only one who doesn't have a clear young guy that was drafted to take his place is Carson Palmer. They've recently said that their backup right now, whose name escaped me for some reason, he can be their starting quarterback in the future, but it depends on Carson Palmer. The thing is, all of these guys, I think the only one who's got a contract beyond 2 more years is Tony Romo. His contract expires at age 40. He'll be 40 when his contract expires. Carson Palmer's got 1 year left in his contract. He's 36. Tom Brady's got 3 years left. The next 2 seasons after this one are $22.4 million, and that'll expire when he's 40. Drew Brees has a $30 million cap hit right here in the last year of his contract. Drew Brees is already in a contract dispute, essentially, with his team because he wants to continue getting paid like what he's been historically, despite slightly declining. Tom Brady looked pretty rough at the beginning of last season, and the list goes on. You look around at these guys. Tony Romo didn't finish the season. Carson Palmer's had his injury issues ever since he tore his ACL. None of these guys are guys that you can trust at their ages to play 16 games, to produce like they have in their primes, but they've produced so much over their careers and are still playing well enough where it's hard to figure out, A, how to pay them, and B, how much longer they're going to be around. Can you afford to pay Drew Brees $30 million, have him take up that much of your cap on a team that has serious holes on defense? The Cardinals are in pretty good shape right now, but depending on what Carson Palmer's next contract is going to be, will that continue to be the case? Do you re-sign Carson Palmer? So on and so forth. Drew Stanton was the guy that I was talking about. They said could be their next quarterback. No one, with the NFL being a quarterback's league, quote unquote, I can't imagine you letting Carson Palmer go just because Drew Stanton is cheaper, or whatever the case may be. The Cowboys have professed their love for Tony Romo so many times. New York refuses to let Eli Manning ride off into the sunset, so on and so forth. Teams are doing everything they can to keep these old quarterbacks on their team because of what they produced in the past. But once you get to a point, had Peyton Manning not gotten hurt, you wouldn't have seen Brock Osweiler at any point in his rookie contract outside of preseason games, and you would have no idea what his value was going into another team. I feel like that's something you're going to see with a lot of these guys Dak Prescott is the first guy that comes to mind because I think that his rookie contract expires the same year as Tony Romo's contract currently does. So if Tony Romo does manage to survive that whole contract, Prescott might walk out and you have no idea what his value is. And I think that's really hard for the league. It's really hard for those teams. And I think you're going to see more of these contract disputes like you've got with Drew Brees right now, because most of these guys aren't going to want to take pay cuts, especially with younger guys like Kirk Cousins is making $2 million more than Carson Palmer, and you can't tell me he's a better quarterback than Carson Palmer is, regardless of his age.
Well, I'm going to say this about quarterbacks because we were mentioning the age of quarterbacks, and I pull up ESPN's Total QBR. Carson Palmer was first last year, and he's 36, 37. Breeze was third, and Breeze is 37 as well, 38.
38.
Let's see. Okay, so Ben is older too. Ben's about 32, 33, and he's like 37 with all the hits he takes. So Kurt, Tyrod, Alex Smith. Alex Smith's older. Well, he's about 28, 29. Aaron Rodgers is 32. Tom Brady was 11th, and he's 38. I think it's like this. With older quarterbacks, yes, you always do need to keep in mind that this could be the season that they fall apart. But I feel like you plan for that in the contracts. I feel like you pay him what he's worth. Breeze last year, even though people say he declined, and I think there is some parts of him that decline a bit, I honestly think that Breeze is more or less just as good as he was. I personally think this is a situation where the weapons around him are declining more than what he's actually declining. Like Marcus Colston, more or less last year, was a corpse. Like he couldn't move last year. They lost Jimmy and replaced him with Max Unger. You know what I mean? He didn't really have the Robert Meacham, Devery Henderson type deep threat. He made, what's the guy's name, Alan? You're good with obscure names. What was Willie Snead last year. And he turned him into a pretty good wideout. You know what I mean? So I feel like you have to pay these guys what they're worth. Carson Palmer was my MVP last year. Everybody knows that. And I know he was older, but I feel like Bruce, that system that he's in, really helped him. Carson was highly accurate on the most difficult throws down the field last year, and I think that was a testament to Carson still having pretty good arm strength, his wide receivers having good catch radiuses, and he was insanely accurate on those last year. It's always a risk when you're paying older quarterbacks big money, but you have to pay them what they're worth, because if you don't, other teams will.
Speaking to that, I agree and disagree at the same time. I do feel like you have to pay them what they're worth, but at the same time, when you're paying someone, you're paying them for what they will do, not for what they've done in the past. And I feel like that's the line that GMs and owners tend to have the hardest time navigating, because it could be an instance where, you know, you talked about Tom Brady earlier, how terrible he looked earlier on, but as soon as he got Gronk back, he looked like an MVP caliber type player. Now, as they age, as they get older, it's basically like a circle to me, the circle of life in football, where when they first come in, when the quarterback first comes into the league, you know, they need to have that talent around them. They got to have a run game. They got to have receivers who can catch. Got to have a safety blanket at tight end. Got to have a decent defense. But then as they progress, they get into their prime, they don't need that. Aaron Rodgers, he didn't need that. Tom Brady, he didn't need that. Peyton Manning, he didn't need that. They didn't need that as they were going through their prime, because they could carry a team. But now that they're older, it reverts back to like in their earlier years. They can't carry a team for 16 games anymore. They can't carry them to the Super Bowl because they need that extra help. And I feel like that's what it is. They just need more help now. We're used to seeing them carry a team. Like Breeze, he wasn't as terrible as people think, but because the Saints as a whole were so bad, never mind that the Saints defense was historically bad again. You know, it's just they even though they've always been bad on defense, he's been able to carry them with how good he has played. But he can't do that anymore, and people still expect him to do that. So now it's, he couldn't Who cares if the defense gave up 600 yards and 48 points? Why can't you? He was able to win before. Why can't he still do it? And that's the problem people fall in. And then you also have the fact that when you get an old quarterback, it could just fall off immediately. Like, hate to do this to you, AJ, but Peyton this year. He went from 2014 looking amazing to after he got hurt against San Diego, it just fell off completely. And he was not the same all last year. At the end of the year, 2 years ago, he just wasn't the same player. And that's the risk you run with an older player at any position, but especially a quarterback, because if you got, like we were just talking in the last topic, Andre Johnson. If Andre Johnson isn't performing, you can take him out throwing a young guy, you know. But if your starting quarterback doesn't perform, it throws off your entire team. Unless you got a historically great defense with Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. Not gonna say no, you know what I'm saying? But that's the risk you run. And I think it's like with the NBA with Dwayne Wade and Miami Heat. Dwayne Wade wanted to get paid for what he did in the past when Pat Riley was looking towards the future. You gotta run that risk. And I think you gotta try to toe the line. And I think with what Alan said before, with the rules changes, it makes it so much easier. Because if you breathe on the quarterback now, it's a penalty. So that's just how I feel. I mean, it's a hard line to navigate, but you can't just give them money just because you think they might be able to do something still when they could just fall off at any money. Just give them 1-year contracts.
I think it goes a little bit back towards our running theme about developing the younger quarterbacks. The thing is I mean, I know I'm not an NFL GM or anything like that, but if you get a good quarterback, shit, you're going to ride them till the wheels fall off because you're not guaranteed to get another quarterback. No, there's only been a few instances where you have a team with a historically good to great quarterback, lose that guy, and then still continue with another great quarterback. Only teams I can think about is the Packers going from Favre to Rodgers, 49ers going from Montana to Steve Young. Yep. And that actually had a lot to do with the UFL or whatever. Anyways, there was another league, so that changes things. There's no other league now. And then you had the Peyton to what's your boy, Luck? That's not a bad – USFL, sorry. But Peyton to Luck, that's pretty lucky to have a playoff team drop into last place like that. Right now, you have these older quarterbacks on all these teams that y'all have been naming. These are quarterbacks on teams that are either middle of the road or even playoff contenders, which means these teams aren't getting high picks at quarterback. Like when they're picking up their backups, they're picking up third and fourth rounders, and there's no talent there that's already ready to go into the NFL if something does happen to that quarterback. So what you're looking for is, how can I keep my first-round Pro Bowl quarterback who's almost 40 years old, and then once he leaves, if I let him go, I have nothing because we weren't a bad team. We were middle of the road or a playoff contender with him. But if I keep him, I can't afford to put around the players that he needs to continue winning because he's aging. So it's a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation with these older quarterbacks. And I think that it can easily be solved by developing younger quarterbacks, which the NFL is not doing.
Right.
If they had a developmental league, it'd be no problem. You know, you can't always get a Kurt Warner coming from Canadian Football League and Greatest Show on Turf. That doesn't happen that often. There aren't a lot of Doug Flutys out there that are going to come from other leagues and be able to just
Steve
play.
McNair.
Right now.
Right.
Steve McNair, Steve Youngs. I'm naming these cats from back in the day because you can't name anybody now, can you? You can only name people from when there were other leagues that rivaled the NFL. That's when there was development. Because they were rivaling the NFL in those different leagues. And when they came to the NFL, you know, even Warren Moon came from a different league and then did well in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But now there's no competition. There's also no development. That competition is what makes development. So, it's one or two ways. Either There's another league, which we all know that's not going to happen. NFL has a stranglehold on it. Like AJT said a couple weeks ago, they're forcing the NFL down our throat, right? A developmental league is the only thing that'll save what's going on. But it's going to be interesting to see the next couple of years because I think you're going to have momentum shifts in teams and conferences and perennial teams and who's the best and who's the worst. Like, because some of these teams are going to go from being, okay, borderline playoffs to, shit, we can't win if we tried. Or we're going to be looking at teams that are going through 4 or 5 quarterbacks every 2 to 3 years because they're still looking for somebody they can just plug in after losing somebody like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Phillip Rivers. I mean, what are Chargers going to do? Not that they're doing good with them, but still. 2 years ago, he took my fantasy team as far as I could go. But now look at it. But that's the situation. It's going to be really interesting to see like what these GMs do and what these coaches do when that day comes that Tom Brady, suspension or not, will not be on the Patriots. Like, we're all waiting to see that day. He might be 45, but when it happens, it'll be interesting.
And I find it interesting. I look at it from this perspective of what are we good? Is the NFL still going to be able to keep these casual fans who come in because of fantasy? Because we're not going to have those great quarterbacks that have been in the NFL for the last 10 years. We're not going to have the Rodgers. We're not going to have the Mannings, the Bradys, the Breezes, the Big Bens. We're not going to have the Tony Romos. We're not going to have that anymore. So we're going to have to, we'll have, people are killing Russell Wilson, but he might be the new age where you're only getting 20 touchdowns throwing the ball. You're not getting those 30, 40 touchdown passes a year because these quarterbacks aren't developing as well, so you're having to tone it down some, and it's not going to be as pass heavy. It might end up being where it reverts back to it was back in our day when it was more of a running game where you were relying on the running back, which I would love because I hate all this throwing. I hate all this throwing the ball, but once all these quarterbacks are gone, because back then because right now, when you draft a quarterback number 1 in the first round, actually second round as well, you expect them to be the starter day 1. Whereas back 10, 15 years ago, even if you draft a quarterback number 1, it wasn't given that he was going to be the opening day starter. He had to learn how to play in the NFL. You got 2-3 years to learn how to play. And then in that 3rd, 4th year, if you didn't produce, then you were a bust. Now, if you didn't come out the gate playing like Marcus Mariota week 1, and you remember this past year, Marcus Mariota versus against Jameis Winston. Winston played terrible that first game. Marcus lit it up. And the whole year, people were saying, oh, Winston's terrible. He's terrible because of that one game. But you look at the end of the year, and Winston's stats, Winston's team is playing better than the Titans were, and Marcus was playing. But it's that one game. If you don't come out the gate lighting it up, people just forget about it and like, oh, you're not going to be good. People getting called a bust after 1 week.
I don't know it's not a quarterback, but they talked about Brashard Perriman in Baltimore being a bust because he was out for the season.
Yeah, he's hurt. How are you a bust if you didn't get a chance to play?
Same thing with Greg Oden. People say he was a bust, and when he actually could play, he produced. He just wasn't healthy. I hope. I don't know how you don't like throwing the football. I mean, nobody wants to see 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's just me. That's just me. I like to see quarterbacks throwing it down the field.
You're alone on that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get with this. Running the ball's great. Cats like Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, Adrian Peterson. I love watching cats like that play. But to me, it's nothing like throwing the ball down the field, seeing if the DB is going to break it up, seeing if the wide receiver is going to come down with it. That's just me. I hope the NFL does not go back to that, honestly. As far as the older quarterbacks, though, I was looking at Brees' contract situation. He signed a 5-year, $100 million deal back in 2012, and it was backloaded. It looks like because he had $3 million base salary in 2012, but now 19.75 mil this year. And I think that's part of the problem with the structure of the contracts, because now you have to deal with more of the situation with the cap hit, even though the cap hit is 30 million now. But you would think, I guess they anticipated him being so declined to the point where they would be able to cut him, so then you wouldn't have to pay him. Yes, he would still have the dead cap, but he wouldn't be on the cap anymore for 30 million. The dead cap is 20 mil 85. But the fact that he's still playing great, you can't cut him at that point, because he's still playing great, and that's what the problem is. Really, if we're looking at it, how the contracts are structured. I understand they're banking on most quarterbacks being declined at that point, but most quarterbacks, most great elite quarterbacks, they generally play throughout their whole contract, and they generally earn all of that money, the base salary, the guaranteed money, signing bonus, all of that.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. Like, you sign him to that quarterback with the expectation that by the time he hits the last year of it, he's either renegotiated or declined to the point where you can release him. But I feel like with these guys and the way the NFL is right now, that's not going to be the case anymore, or it hasn't been the case. All of these guys, with the exception of Tony Romo and Eli Manning, really are still guys playing at a high level. Tony Romo hasn't really played, but Eli Manning's looked rough the last couple seasons. So yeah, there's a
rough
chance.
his whole career. It's terrible. It's
Here we
terrible.
go.
Eli is terrible.
Even from Eli standards, he's looked pretty tough recently.
I mean, in Eli's defense, though, well, never mind. I can't even say that. Okay.
He's got Odell Beckham. How you look that bad with Odell Beckham?
Right.
Yeah, okay. I was going to defend him, but I can't. I was looking at his numbers last year, and I can't. I can't. I'm sorry. I don't have anything to say.
I think that, and it's one thing that Purvis said, you end up paying these guys because you're afraid you can't get another one. Like you said, all these guys were on playoff teams. You're afraid if you let them walk and try to get a young guy in, it'll hurt your momentum trying to win a championship. But at the same time, whatever holes you do have that separate the playoff teams from the championship teams, you can't afford to address because you got a 39-year-old quarterback making $28 million. It's a no-win in my opinion, and I don't really know how you fix it.
Well, stop paying mediocre quarterbacks like Eli and Matt Stafford. Stop paying them. Like
Jay Cutler. Stop saying this is the year Jay Cutler turns it around. He's been in the league 13 years. He is what he is. He's not a good quarterback.
Yeah, he's not.
That's just what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but if you stop paying those quarterbacks, that's fine. What you're in the situation is you're gonna have this carousel of quarterbacks like what you have going on in Arizona for a while. You still have going on in Cleveland. Teams are looking at those teams and like, we do not want to be that team where we can't even sell quarterback number jerseys because we're not sure if they're going to be here the next season because we don't know what we're going to get from them. Like, yeah, but nobody that owns a football team wants to be in that situation. And that's the situation teams are looking at when they see that, hey, when Tom Brady's gone, shit, if Garoppolo plays good for 4 games, that's it. We're not going to get that. He's going to do what was the backup from the Packers did, that crap. He's going to go somewhere and get paid off of just 4 games.
Yeah, Matt Flynn.
Yeah, Matt Flynn. He's going to pull a Matt Flynn. If he plays, or Matt Castle. Shit, Matt Castle did it for the Patriots.
I was getting ready to say the same thing.
Yeah, you play a couple games, and people are like, shit, we're going to take him because at least we know that he can play because no one else is going to get to play. So you're not going to see what anybody else is, and that's a better look, at least that we saw him play those 4 games over these college QBs who we don't know anything about them, or these backups who don't ever develop because they don't get to play and nobody's developing them. So I'm going to take the for sure thing while I have it. So if I have a Tom Brady, I'm going to pay him because I have no idea what's coming next. And I do not want to be the Cleveland Browns of the NFL.
Yeah, but then I think that teams need to get better at evaluating quarterbacks and stop trying to put schemes around quarterbacks where they don't fit.
Is it evaluating or developing?
I mean, developing. It's not evaluating.
I think it's both because Marcus Mariota, even though he lit it up week 1, there was talk of them who was it, Wisenhunt, I believe, trying to put him in a standard shotgun drop back when shotgun is okay, but Marcus Mariota, not saying that he can't read the field because he obviously does, but they weren't even trying to use his mobility at first. And part of the issue was that old school quarterback coaches and coaches in general are so pent on trying to force what they're doing on these young guys instead of if you're going to get fired for at least trying to build your system around your young quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
The only problem with that is these coaches don't know that going into the situation. Like, you don't know what players you're going to be getting from the league, but you do know what you are in the league. I have a team of 50 guys. We've been doing this for 2 years. We finally can afford a quarterback. We bring them in, and I'm going to have these 50 guys change everything for this one guy, and we're all professionals.
If
that's
this is
not
your
professional.
if
That's
if
high
this
school.
is your
That's college.
if this
That's
is your franchise, if this is your franchise guy, the guy that you drafted top overall, not necessarily number one, but the guy that you're selling as to hope from your team, yes, you do. You have to put him in the best possible.
If he's a franchise guy, he has the tools to learn this offense, and we will gradually bring him into it. But
I feel like that's
you bring me
stubborn.
a guy,
Here's a novel idea, though. How about this? Don't draft him. If he doesn't fit your system, nothing says you have to draft that guy. I don't understand that.
You can't come out of the draft with nobody, though.
You can't. You can't go into the draft with, especially if quarterbacks in need, and not draft.
Why get someone who? Well, why draft someone that you know does not fit your system? If I hire a coach who doesn't want to do that, because then, oh yeah, that's terrible. But then, if you're gonna do that, there's ways to do it. There's ways to incorporate that. You can do like the Panthers did. Cam Newton didn't fit their style. What they did was adjust to what he can do and slowly bring him along.
But
there's
that's
ways
the
you
point.
can do that.
But that's the
Coaches don't
point.
want to do that.
But that's the point. Who's the offensive coordinator now? Didn't he just leave? Was it Shula? Mike Shula?
No, I thought it was
I can't think of the guy's name now.
Lombardi. Wasn't it Lombardi or something like that?
No.
Gone.
Was it? The quarterback coach. I thought it was
quarterback coach.
Yeah, who was the quarterback coach? Was it he was the one that got credit for
Ken Dorsey?
No, I don't think it was
Shula.
Dorsey.
It was Shula.
Right. So he was the one that got credit for finally building that offense around Cam. Cam's been a revolutionary talent for years. Last year was the first year that he finally realized it. What took so long? Stop trying to put these guys into systems where they don't match. Cam was draft pick 1-1. What took so long? Stop trying to
get comfortable.
Stop trying to put square pegs in round holes. Anybody who watches football, all of us are knowledgeable about football. We know what Cam's strengths are. He's not the most accurate quarterback, but he can hit the throw down the field, and his mobility combined with his size makes him a running back where you can just do things with running quarterbacks that you can't do with any other quarterback. Like, they literally ran some plays for running backs for him last year. That plays I've never seen, not for any other quarterback, but because of his size and ability to break tackles. Why wasn't that in the playbook before?
I agree with you.
Trying to keep him healthy.
Yeah, that's a lot of hits to be taken.
I don't know, man. He's 6'6", 250. I understand you don't want to put him in danger all the time. I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
Ben Roethlisberger's the same size, and he stays hurt.
Right.
As he takes all those hits.
But Ben Roethlisberger, that's true, but Ben Roethlisberger isn't the athlete Cam Newton is either. True. And Cam Newton delivers the blow more than Ben Roethlisberger does. And I think that makes a difference, too. You know what I mean? Like, they're about the same size, but they're definitely not the same athletically.
But the thing is, coming out his rookie year, it's not like Cam was terrible. He was really good. He's been good.
I don't think he was ever terrible. I always thought that he was below average to average, and then he started to slowly, not quick enough for some people, but slowly get better and gradually get better. Again, he wasn't my MVP last year, but I will definitely say that this was the first year for me that he lived up on that promise. I'll say that because he was hitting throws he had not hit before. He was making plays that he had not made before, and his pocket presence, again, and I'm not trying to bring the race thing into it, his pocket presence last year was very, very good. And that was one thing that I heard people say that he couldn't get right. His pocket presence last year was very good. His offensive line helped. He had a great offensive line last year, but I've seen him escape some. I've seen him show escapability, and not just running, but moving in the pocket, adjusting his eyes, doing things that he had never done before. That's personal growth, but also him feeling comfortable in the system with Shula, where he knows where to go and it's tailored to his strengths. So, I don't understand why teams try to continue to put not everybody is system independent. Like, everybody can't be a Peyton Manning. Everybody can't be an Aaron Rodgers and be system independent. Sometimes you have to build some kind of system, like Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not throwing the ball down the field. He's in a perfect system where his decision making is top notch. His ability to read defenses is top notch. All he has to do is drop back and get rid of the ball quickly. That's it. That's not a knock on Brady, but that's to his strengths. That's all I'm saying. Why don't more teams do that?
I don't think Peyton Manning should be in that conversation as being system independent.
Well, what I mean is, well, okay, I see what you're saying, but it was his. Okay,
yeah, I know. I'll just mess with you. I know what you mean. I'll just
his system, right? Yeah,
because there's only a couple quarterbacks in the history of the NFL who could go in any system. But people use system quarterback as a bad thing. Being able to dominate in a system is not a bad thing. Like Drew Brees, he was good in San Diego, but he became a Hall of Famer because of that system in New Orleans. It's not a bad thing to be a system quarterback. It's just people hear these terms, hear game manager, hear system quarterback, and they negatively reinforce them. Like, it's not a bad thing. When you hear game manager, you're thinking, oh, Alex Smith. You don't want to be Alex Smith. Game manager is also Tom Brady, who has 4 Super Bowls and 6 appearances. There's nothing wrong with being a game manager. Russell Wilson was a game manager up until this year, and he has 2 Super Bowl appearances. Being a game manager is not always a bad thing. Hell, Terry Bradshaw was a game manager. But you don't have to have a quarterback who is going to win the game for you. You can just have a quarterback who doesn't make a mistake, and it not be an issue. Just like you can have a quarterback who might not fit your system now, but if you can cultivate a system that puts him in there, like I give Shanahan, the Shanahans in Washington team, not saying they slogan name whatever, but that Washington team, I give them a lot of flack. But that rookie year with RG3, what they did when they initially tried to just throw him in there, have him in shotgun and do a pocket passer, that wasn't his game. So what they did was they changed it up, and they had a good season because of that. But then they tried to revert back and all that other drama. But if you do that, if you change your system to make this guy comfortable, and it's what Purvis said before, well, what about the other 53 guys? That team, once they saw what he could do, they gravitated towards him. Like, oh, we need to do this to win. Let him run. Hell, let him run. And they took him to a division win. They got a division title because of it. I think most players are going to, whatever it takes to win, that's what players want to do.
That's what players want to do. It's that simple, really.
I think what y'all are jumping to is more about the top tier quarterbacks, though.
No,
yeah, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, you're expecting to either have a system that he can thrive in, or the coach is going to have to change the system. But what are you going to do when you have what we're talking about, these older quarterbacks, when they leave and you have to use a middle of the road quarterback? You can't change your system for that guy. Then what are you going to do?
You get a middle of the road quarterback that fits your system. If you are a dink and dunk offense, you get a dink and dunk quarterback who has been a dink and dunk. Like that. That's what you do.
What
and then you find a young. There's always those.
There's always.
All these quarterbacks. They got Mark Sanchez's and Caleb Haney's and Luke McGill who hadn't did nothing their entire careers, who are still getting jobs. Those quarterbacks are always available.
Yeah,
they're still available.
But that's not everybody's system. I mean,
finding a quarterback.
if you're say you're Cleveland Browns right now, you don't freaking want Mark Sanchez as your quarterback,
But
right?
we don't know what their system is either, though, P. So
I know you don't want Mark Sanchez. I don't care what system it is.
I mean, okay, Mark Sanchez has proven to be.
Hey, that's my quarterback, man. That's my quarterback.
All,
Your
Yeah.
quarterback is Trevor Simeon. Your quarterback is Trevor Simeon. We all know.
all, all I'm saying is that if you're switching, if you're changing a guard from like a great quarterback who's made your team either above average, playoff contender, or even just middle of the road, when you switch to who's next, you're in a bind because you don't like that quarterback probably made your offense. Think about what's going to happen, even though you said Tom Brady's a game manager. Okay, for one season or a couple of games, yeah, you can put somebody in and it's probably still going to work. But as there's more film on that new guy, as he has to progress with whatever talent is around him, you're going to find out if he really fits the system or you need to look for a new guy. And that takes time. And looking for the new guy is what puts you in the middle to lower tier of the league. And that's where you're trying not to be. What I'm saying is look at that drop off. People are trying to avoid that drop off. If you look at football teams historically, it's all about like phases. There's a time. You have a window when your team is great. Then you have a window when your team is average. And usually you have a window when your team sucks. Usually, if you look at it historically, those windows are very close to each other. Teams that are middle of the road for a while, they either become good and great or they go and suck. And after they suck for a while, they'll become good and great again. Like, the thing is, if my team's been good for a while, I mean, look at what happened with the Colts. They made the playoffs for almost 10, 11 years straight. One injury, last place in the division. They really have they won the division
Wasn't one injury.
since, but they have.
It was more than one
Sorry,
injury.
there was a lot of injuries that season. There was a lot of injuries. But what I'm saying is, you have one bad season. How about that? You got one bad season. You drop to the bottom of the barrel in that one season, and since then you've kind of gotten your way back, but you're not the same team. You're not that power team in the division anymore. And now you're trying to figure out how to get back there, and that's with a number one pick.
But I think,
afterwards.
I think you have to take into account the fact that going from Peyton Manning to Andrew Luck's going to be a drop off anyway, and I feel like
that's
you have
as
to
good as
factor
you're
that.
gonna get.
But
You're not gonna get any better drop off from any other team. That's like Favre and Rodgers. Like, you're not gonna get anything that close anywhere else.
I mean, but
So
A-Rod
what
was
does
better.
everybody else do?
I mean, but A-Rod was better than Favre to me. Maybe I'm in the minority there. I feel like A-Rod. I feel like A-Rod's better than. So Green Bay got lucky in that regard. Indy was lucky
That's
in the
what I'm
sense
saying.
that
What are
they
you gonna
got.
do if you don't? What do you do if you don't get lucky?
You have to build.
But you gotta
something-
have realistic.
Yeah,
realistic
you got to be realistic,
expectations.
and you got to have something sustainable. Like now, it's going to be interesting. I'm glad we mentioned that because we have to talk about Seattle. This is going to be the first year where this offense is going to be Russell Wilson's offense. We're going to see the first. Speaking of what you're saying, Russell Wilson was always a very good quarterback, not taking anything from him. But that defense was the best unit that they had and kept them in a lot of games, helped get them good field position. Not saying the defense is still going to be bad. But now it's going to be Russell Wilson's show. They done paid Doug Baldwin. Now I think they paid Doug Baldwin. So this is going to be how it looks. And as long as you have something sustainable, you're good. You're fine. You just have to build a culture of sustainability. And as long as you have a franchise quarterback, that's all you need. That's your culture of sustainability.
What if you
When that
don't?
franchise
What
quarterback
happens?
turns 38, what happens to your sustainability?
Yeah, what happens? That's exactly what I'm talking
But
about.
that's where the realism comes in. You're not going to always be on top. You have to plan for that. You have to scout for that.
How?
That's what easy. You can look in the draft for quarterbacks. You can build stronger defenses.
I think that's wrong. I think that's wrong.
Quarterback.
If you got a 30-year quarterback and you're still a playoff team, how do you plan on not being good? I hear what you're saying, but fans don't want to say, okay, we're in the playoffs, but guys, we're going to suck next year. We're just planning for it. Nobody wants to hear that. No owner wants to hear that. No fan wants to hear that. No player wants to hear that.
Yeah, but that's not realistic either, though, Alan. And that's the problem. I know us as fans, all fans of our teams, we're very realistic. I'm fully realistic about the Colts and our terribly flawed front office. Stop building this offense around Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is not good enough to overcome the flaws of the rest of the team. Build the rest of the team, then Luck, his performance will increase. Stop doing that. And that's realism from a fan. Yeah, I mean, it's to me, and I'm not a GM at all, but it's evident to me that they're building the team around Luck the same way they built around Peyton Manning, but Luck isn't Peyton Manning. That's the problem. That's the realistic portion for me. I'm aware of that. A lot of other Colts fans don't see that.
But I feel like that's what people want, because like you just said, once you get a franchise quarterback, you're good. But people tend to forget that there's 32 teams in this league. There's probably 5 franchise quarterbacks. So the other 27 teams in the league do not have a franchise quarterback.
More like 10.
There's not 10 franchise quarterbacks.
Okay. Hold on.
To me, a franchise quarterback can overcompensate for all those flaws that you have. There are 10 guys who can do that.
Are we just going based off performance from last year? Because A-Rod, even though he had a bad year, he has to be one. Yeah. Brady has to be one. I would say Cam, and I'm projecting Cam going forward would be one. Ben is one for sure.
Ben, I don't have Brady up there anymore because I don't think he's good enough to overcompensate anymore. And I get that from the perspective of when he didn't have Gronk last year, he looked terrible. He looked done when Gronk wasn't there. Gronk can make anyone look good.
But when I say that, I'm a hater. I just want to point that out because I've said that ad nauseum. But when I say it, I'm the biggest hater in the world. So I'm glad somebody else said it. Okay. Yeah. So do y'all consider Breeze a franchise guy?
No.
I have a hard time with him because I don't think he can overcompensate, but at the same time, he had a historically bad defense. It's hard to compensate for a historically bad defense. I think he's good enough if he has a middle of the road or even a bottom fifth of the league defense, but he had a historically bad defense. That's hard.
Okay, so we got Ben. Okay, Russell Wilson, obviously. So Ben, Russell Wilson. Do y'all consider Tyrod one? I love Tyrod, by the way.
I love him, but
I love Tyrod. Okay, so Ben, Russell, A-Rod, Cam Newton.
That's it. That's all I have. That's it.
Wow.
So I don't know. Was or wasn't? Because I love Tyrod.
Say that again.
Did you say Tyrod was or wasn't?
No, I love him, but I don't think he is. No.
I think he will be. I think in the next 2 years he'll be in that category.
Yeah, I hope Rex don't ruin him. I hope. I sincerely hope Rex does not ruin. Yo, Tyrod made some throws last year where my jaw just hit the floor.
It's amazing. He has an arm, man.
Man, his arm
is nice.
I hate to sound like Mike Mayock and Mel Kiper, but his arm like, yo, he literally made some throws. I just had to drop my remote and walk away. Like, his touch on the deep ball is something crazy. So that's 4. I got to believe it's more than 4. Andy Dalton. Y'all don't consider Andy Dalton?
I think so.
Andy Dalton's the reason they haven't won a Super Bowl.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
Team is. Look at that team.
Yeah, they are stacked, though.
That team is ridiculous. That team is unbelievably stacked. From the trenches to the linebackers to the secondary to their running backs. Look at the running backs they have. Look at the receivers. That team, Tyler Eifert is a beast.
He is.
That team is stacked, but he is a dink and dunk quarterback. You should be able to do more with him.
He can throw the deep ball,
but not
deep ball was his deep ball was his strength at TCU actually, which is why I don't understand why he didn't throw the more. But their offense is a quick hitting offense. His sack rate has always been one of the lowest, so it's really hard to throw deep if you get the ball out so quickly.
Yeah, he led the league in snap release or pass release last year.
Yeah, like 2 pass to throw. Yeah, he did.
But my thing is, I would put him in there because I will say this: last year he was looking like a beast. Like he looked like he took that Cam Newton step. Like he took that step.
Let me ask this to this subject: if you don't consider Andy Dalton a franchise quarterback, can you replace him with AJ McCarron and have the same level of success?
No.
I agree.
No.
But AJ McCarron is.
No.
You know what? I think AJ McCarron actually might be a player. I kind of like what I saw out of him last year.
I think he will be, but not right now. He's not bad. He's a very good game manager. He's not that dude right now.
But it's always been hard to separate quarterback skill from the skill of his team, and I think that's the problem there. Like, how do we know what? Well, I mean, I think all of us have a good idea, but how do we know the difference between Dalton and against his team? Like, you could look at Yak. Like, you could look at they have other stats, Yak plus time to throw. Like, I think sacks are a quarterback stat. I am fully convinced that sacks are a quarterback stat.
Some sacks,
not all of them.
I think sacks in general. And I'll go to last year with the Denver. Brock's sack rate was 9.1%, and Peyton's was 4.5 with the exact same offensive line.
Our offensive line.
But still, 4% of the time, Peyton Manning got sacked. So
he still got sacked. You know, it's maybe the high rate of sacks might be, but you telling me that Aaron Rodgers isn't a good quarterback because he gets sacked so much?
No. I'm not saying that.
His line is terrible.
No. I don't think his line is terrible. I honestly think, I'm going to be honest with you, I've stopped putting blame on the offensive line for sacks a while ago, maybe about 2 years, because just based on the research that I've read, like Aaron Rodgers, I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan, love him. But a lot of the time he holds the ball looking to complete a pass because he doesn't want to throw interceptions. Like, he's completely adverse to throwing interceptions. And that's fine, but he won't make that throw that his arm talent suggests that he could because he doesn't want to throw a pick, and thus will result in a sack. I can't put there. Obviously, there are some sacks that are on the offensive line. I mean, on the offensive line. But I feel like if you're looking at the overall sack percentage, I think that's a quarterback stat. I do. And Denver reinforced that for me last year when looking at the difference between Brock and a dead Peyton Manning.
Percentage I'll give you.
But not the total number, because you got a guy getting sacked as many times as like Eli Manning was, or what's that dude name played for the Texans? Not David Carr. David Carr. Like that wasn't David Carr.
That wasn't David Carr.
That line was terrible. Like it's a medium. I say 50-50 because you know your line can only protect for so long, but at the same time a quarterback has to get rid of the ball. So I think it's 50. I wouldn't put it all on the quarterback, but there's a percentage of it that does go to the quarterback because they can't hold the ball.
If you really want to find out what it is to do with a quarterback with the sacks, is you need to see about the time, the length. The average time of a release from snap to throw should be maybe 4.5 seconds.
No, shorter than that.
Done.
Yeah, I was gonna say
shorter than that. No, it's shorter than that.
I was giving you wiggle room. Sorry,
okay.
I was giving you wiggle room.
Anything that's over 4
seconds.
Keep the man 3 seconds and it's on him.
Yeah, I was about to say anything 3 or above is on the quarterback usually. Not all the time, but usually.
So that's the number you're looking for then. How about that? You got me on the numbers. Anything over 3 seconds that's a sack, then maybe you can say it attributes to the quarterback. Anything under 3 seconds, you're going to say it's the line. You also need to know, is he in the pocket or did he have to leave the pocket? If you leave the pocket, then that's either on the quarterback because he left it too early, or it's on the line because he had to leave the pocket because there was pressure. And those type of things you can't quantify. That's the problem. You can't really quantify those things. You can only say sack or interception, fumble, etc. But the timing and when it happens would be the best way to quantify it to decide if you want to do the quarterback or the lineman. And I think the thing that you see with Peyton is Peyton gets rid of the ball quickly no matter what happens. He's not going to take a sack, but he's also not going to throw a pick. But he'll get rid of the ball and he'll have incompletions. And you have other quarterbacks who are more like Tony Romo type quarterbacks. They're fucking gunslingers. No matter what, they're going to try to make a completion out of the play, and it ends up causing them to have more sacks and interceptions. And that's just a mentality. It doesn't really mean that it's a better or worse quarterback. You have 2 different types. Brett Favre led the NFL in history for touchdowns and interceptions at the same time because he don't give a fuck. He's trying to throw touchdown passes. Either somebody's going to catch it, either from his team or the other team. That's the mentality he had. Does that make him a bad quarterback? No. It made him exciting to watch.
Some people would say yes.
I mean, I think Favre's overrated. I don't think he's definitely not a bad quarterback, but I think
his legacy is overrated, not his stats.
His
I
legacy
mean,
is
His
definitely
legacy,
overrated.
is overrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
like Favre's sack percentage was
But that's
4.9
because
for
he's
his
a
career.
gunslinger.
Like that wasn't bad. His interception percentage though was a bit ghastly, but honestly, like Favre wasn't really like his interception percentage for his career was 3.3. That's kind of high actually, but I mean that does speak to quarterback styles. Like you have A-Rod who absolutely refuses to throw picks, but he'll take a lot of sacks. Like Tom Brady will take more sacks, but he will not throw interceptions, and I think that's his best skill as a quarterback. He just will not throw interceptions. Peyton Manning didn't throw a lot of picks. He threw some, but he will refuse to take a sack. He will get the ball out quickly. I guess it just depends on quarterback styles. Russell Wilson will take sacks. He doesn't often throw a lot of picks. It's really a trade-off between sacks and interceptions that, and I think that's where we need to find the trade-off, for the best. But it just shows you could do it in a lot of different ways too. It doesn't always just have to be avoiding sacks and throwing picks or throwing picks and avoiding sacks. Like you can be good at both.
Yeah, and I also think it goes to how much athleticism a quarterback has. You see, it's the quarterbacks who typically are a little bit more athletic hold on to the ball because they believe in their ability a little bit more than a quarterback who can't move.
Yeah.
Because if you can't move, once the line gets break, because you're taught get it off in 3-4 seconds. And if once you get past that, you got that internal clock going off in your head. If it's not out, then you're about to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of both.
Unless you're somebody like Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger,
who's just bigger than everybody.
He waits. Yeah, he waits so that he can extend the play. He makes a lot of good plays extending it. That's part of his player mentality. Is hey, I'm not gonna. Yeah, I mean, I didn't say it's perfect for him, but it works for him. He makes good plays that way, and he makes bad plays. But that's with any type of player. I mean, Peyton Manning throws the ball quickly. It leads to a lot of incomplete passes, which leads to plays basically wasted because he doesn't want to take a sack or sit in there a little bit longer. And Peyton Manning, he will throw the ball if you are within like 3 yards of him. The dude does not want to get hit at all, which leads to a lot of early throws, which could be incomplete passes or interceptions. And that's because that's the style of player he is. You have players like I just said, Ben, he'll let you hit him, and he'll hold you off with his left hand and throw the ball with his right hand. Sometimes accurate, sometimes it's not. But that's the difference between those two players, and the timing of that is going to change how many interceptions and sacks they have.
Like Ben's sack rate for his career is 7.5. His pick percentage is 2.7. Peyton's is 2.6 for his career, but his sack percentage is like 3, which is the best in NFL history. Him and Marino. So again, and Ben's an elite quarterback doing it his way. A-Rod's an elite quarterback doing it his way. Again, it's just about a trade-off, really.
But that's the thing. The people we're talking about right now, we're talking about all the best quarterbacks. Can you name any quarterbacks who aren't in these tiers, this top tier that we're naming here, that have these same skill sets?
Like Matt Stafford is great at avoiding stat. Matt Stafford is great. And Matt Stafford's sack percentage, he's great at avoiding sacks.
I think a big part of that, though, was just throwing the ball up to Calvin Johnson.
Well, I take that back. Matt Stafford, I take it back. Matt Stafford had 2 seasons at being great at avoiding sacks. He's at 5.3 for his career. Andy Dalton is probably somebody who's better at avoiding sacks.
He's pretty good. He's also pretty athletic as well.
He is. Well, that's true.
People realize that.
Surprisingly athletic.
Oh, don't do that.
Yep, I said it.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Nah, he's athletic, man. He can move, and he's not. I get on him just simply because, man, hey, that team is so good. That team is so good. I feel like the same about your Rams, Purvis. That team is good. It's just you don't have nobody to lead that team.
We won't be for much longer though.
We'll see.
Those young guys y'all talking about are
old now.
They're becoming veterans and going elsewhere. God damn it! Whatever happened to Janoris Jenkins?
Y'all just need to build around. Just build around Donald. That's it. Just Just build.
That's what I did on my Madden team. I
Yeah,
built
just
around Donald.
yeah, just build around him, and y'all will be good.
Yeah. I
I
I'm really interested to see
like
what the
I
Rams
like
do.
Case Keenum.
I think they're going to end up. They're either going to surprise or they're going to be really bad because I don't think their quarterback play is what they want it to be.
Yeah, clearly.
The worst part is that the Rams always do good in their division. We just don't win outside of our division.
But they always have close games.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. They have close games. But in the NFL, it's games are that close. You lose games more than you win the games.
That's your boy. That's your boy Jeff Fisher.
I was getting ready to say that's got to be a coaching
Jeff
thing.
Fisher
It's terrible.
Yeah.
There's no way he should be in the NFL coaching still. He's terrible. He's never been good. Never.
It's his mustache.
Middle of the road all his career. Middle of the road. He's still middle of the road.
So to end this conversation off, who are y'all's top 5 quarterbacks in the league today?
If we're just going based off last year,
Based off last year and what you project them to be this year.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, that changes it for me.
Is it unanimous? Cam is number 1.
No.
What?
No.
I got.
I'm not gonna order them. I'm just gonna name 5.
No, I can't.
I got 5. I think.
Okay.
Yeah. I got Drew Brees. I don't care what you say. I got Tom Brady. I don't care what you say. I got Ben Roethlisberger. I still don't care what you say. I got Russell Wilson. You can agree with that if you want. And I got Cam Newton. That's just off the top of my head. I don't care if you agree with me or not, because they're top quarterbacks. Ben probably isn't gonna put up the numbers, but shit, I love Ben. I mean, look at that guy.
Yeah, look at him. What does that mean?
He's everything you wanted Dante Culpepper to be, but
don't do that. 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 Leave. Get your roll on out of it now. Don't do that. Like, yeah, don't nah. I don't know. For me, I'm just naming 5.
Yeah.
A-Rod, Cam, Russell, Ben. Oh, and I'm torn between Carson and Drew. I'm probably gonna pick Drew because I think he's more likely to maintain his success going forward. But it's a small list, man.
Like I had to say I can't think about number 1. I had to take back that unanimous Cam, but my top 5 I got Cam, Rodgers, Wilson. Dang.
See, it's tough, right?
It's hard. Because I'm thinking about what I think they're gonna do this year as well. I'd probably throw Ben in there just because him and Brown him and AB is just ridiculous. And I'd say Palmer.
Palmer over Breeze.
Yeah, and over Brady. I don't have Brady in the top 5.
And Rodgers is so
Brady on my fantasy team.
Yeah, Rodgers is better than everybody.
Yeah. But here's the problem though. Here's the problem though. Because you got on Brady for not having Gronk, but you didn't get on A-Rod and how he looked without Jordy Nelson.
He still looked good.
He still looked good last year.
No, he
wasn't. No, there's a difference. He didn't look as great as he used to, but he still looked good. Brady didn't look good without Gronk.
Okay.
Rodgers still looked good.
Okay. I could go with that. I can go with that.
For a long stretch, there was a time where people were like, "Oh, they don't really even need Jordy Nelson," and then reality set in.
I don't know. That was the color barrier right there. That was the color barrier. People thought that was Jordy does not get his just due. Jordy Nelson is a top 5 receiver in this league. Top 5.
That's because he's deceptively fast.
He works hard. He has that good work ethic.
Yeah, he's very smart. Come on, man. Like I hate that, man. Like Like, no, man, Jordy Nelson is just 6'3", 229, and he's huge and he's fast. Like, no, there's no deceptive anything about it. He's running right by you. Come on, man. Come on, man.
I can say something that's gonna make Turner mad. You know who my breakout quarterback is this year? Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater.
Yes.
Teddy Bridgewater. He's gonna light it up. He is going to light it up. I'm taking my claim. He's gonna do it this year. Yes, he is.
So I'm gonna say this. I don't hate Bridgewater. I don't. I like him. I do. I just think that. How can I say this? No. I think he's a good player. I do. I really do. Like his QBR last year was 13. He looked very good against Seattle, considering that defense last year. I thought personally, despite what the stats show, I think he played a pretty decent game in that game. I think his lack of durability, like his frame and his inability to hit that deep ball, is gonna hurt him.
But he can. He does when he needs to. He to me, he is the perfect player for what we were saying. You get a quarterback to fit your system. He does exactly what he's asked to do.
I don't disagree.
They want him to hand it to Adrian Peterson 30 times a game, so he can do that. But if you look at him in college, he can hand it off, or he can throw it.
Or he can throw plays. I don't disagree with that. But the difference to me, and now Minnesota has an indoor stadium. By the way, have y'all seen it? It looks very, very nice.
No, I haven't yet.
Yeah, they're indoors now. That'll help him. He don't have to fight the elements. Some of his throws sailed last year in the elements, like, and that's not a good look for a younger quarterback who you would think arm strength would be at his best now. So that I think he'll be helped a lot. Like, I'm not a big proponent of he can't play in cold weather. I don't like that narrative. But some of his throws just didn't look the same in the colder weather last year.
Like, he doesn't have that cannon, but his accuracy, he is deadly accurate with his throws. He does like Peyton did after the neck surgery, where he can't zip it in there, but he knows the time. He has the time. He knows the time of the route and where you're supposed to be, and he'll have it there. He might not throw it. He won't get it in between two defenders, but he knows where you're supposed to be, and he can get it there to where once you get there, it's there.
Right.
I agree with the arm strength perspective that you came with, but I just think because there's so many other ways you can get around it.
I agree. He just has to be schemed around it, and North Turner just has to stop doing the read option with him just because he's black.
Man,
just because he's black.
He's not a running quarterback.
He's not even
black. Don't mean he can run.
He's right. I was gonna say he like his mobility is minimal. Like, I ain't saying he can't run.
Very limited.
I'm not saying he can't run, but come on, yo, the read option has got to stop. I don't want to see any read option from him.
Teddy Bridgewater has deceptively limited mobility.
He just looks like he can run because he's frail.
Yeah, he just looks like he can run.
He looks like he can run.
The funniest thing to me ever is still Jameis Winston running in college for like a 5-yard touchdown. It looks so terrible. Mm-hmm. Like he had never ran in his life. He's terrible. He cannot run.
That guy.
It's funny because you got a group now of young quarterbacks that we'll say people expect to be able to run that can't. Geno Smith is another one in addition to the two that you mentioned. You got these guys that they all came out of somewhat spread offenses, so you think, oh, they can run, they can take. Oh, we can do read option. Have you ever seen them try to do a read option with Geno? It doesn't work.
Oh, it's so bad. He is terrible at it.
I mean, he has some mobility. Geno has some mobility.
Geno's had a 74. He has a 74 speed in Madden. That's what he is. That's what he looks like when he runs.
Yeah,
he has 70. Like, you can get away a little bit, but that's not something you want to consistently do.
Right.
I blame Vince Young. I blame Vince Young and what he did at UT Austin, because people have this misconception that the spread offense is the same thing as the read spread offense.
Yeah, it's
that they do in Texas. They think, oh, you're in spread, then you automatically do the read. No, that is not the spread offense.
Yeah,
that's
not
the read offense. And people don't understand it. It's not the same. And people just see, oh, you came from a spread, then you can do the read. That's not the case.
No, because you're right. It's not the same.
You do a damn read.
But I think some teams should incorporate both. like Tennessee with Mariota, like you could spread and read. If you spread it, that'll make it easier to read. Put 3-4 wideouts out there, and then have the wide receiver in the backfield, and then read it from there. I really think that's something. Listen, man, why aren't we coaches? Like, I feel like this. I mean, it's simple to me. It's simple really to me. Simple. Like, you can look at dudes playing college, look at them playing the NFL. Like, what are we missing?
My thing, going back to the original topic, somewhat is people try to I think they listen to too much. Like, there's not every year there's not a can't miss prospect that you can't pass on. You need to get a player who will fit your system, who fits what you do. There's no reason for you, as the Houston Texans, you run a 3-4 defense to take Jadeveon Clowney with the #1 pick when he cannot play as a 3-4 defensive end or a 3-4 linebacker. He can't do it. He's a great 4-3 defensive end, but he's not a good 3-4 defensive end. So why would you do that? He wasn't that can't miss. And I feel like people do that so much because, like, oh, if we pass on this guy and he turns out to be great, like, the fact of missing on a player, it formulates so many decisions that people make because they're scared to miss on a player.
Right.
Like, you're gonna miss on guys.
That's what happens. Player like that, the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, but you don't really want to.
That there's no development. No, actually, it's more like what Turner said earlier. People aren't evaluating correctly because they're saying, oh, if I don't get this guy, then I'm not going to get anything. Like, if I skip on him, whoever I get next is not going to be nearly as good because they think there's that much disparity in player talent, which really says that they have lack of confidence in their own development. Like, if you give me a top 10 player, I feel that as a coach and as an organization that if I get a top 10 player, I can make him fit my scheme to do exactly what I need, whether he's number 1 or number 10. Now, if I feel that number 1 is that much better than number 10, then I need to be sure of it. These teams aren't sure of it. They're just guessing. They're just hoping that number 1 is this much better than number 10. And if that's the case, you might as well save your money, get number 10, and see how it works.
Yeah, but you also don't want to miss on the generational talent either because those don't come along. Like, Watt is a generational talent, and 10 teams missed on him. He was.
But you didn't know it. You didn't know that coming in.
You don't know that.
He was J.J. Watt. Now wasn't J.J. Watt.
I know.
He wasn't the same.
I know. I mean, you're right. Okay, bad example.
What you're going off of, I would say was Randy Moss. People passed on Randy Moss when they should not have passed on Randy Moss. They knew coming in that Randy Moss was that dude, and they still passed on that.
Okay, that's a better example. And Randy Moss went what, 22?
Yep. Damn.
Was it 22?
I think it was 22.
It was 22. So okay, that is a better example, and he was clearly a generational talent. I think the issue with football is so much production is based on scheme and not necessarily individual talent. So a lot of teams feel like they can plug and play. But how many generational talents have there really been in football in the past 20 years? I would say Peyton Manning, and I'm not necessarily, and I'm not saying generational talent and then production, not just having the talent, but having like generational production.
Now, are we talking now in retrospect? Or are we talking at that time?
I was gonna ask the same question.
Because looking back, yeah, Peyton Manning you couldn't pass on. But going in, Ryan Leaf was considered better than him. So was Ryan Leaf also a generational talent?
I think, I don't know, and maybe this is the product of hindsight, but I feel like a lot of that, and you know, good thing Tim's not here. I think people made Ryan Leaf a rival, just like they gave Charles Woodson the Heisman. Nobody ever wanted to give a defensive player a Heisman. Let me finish. Charles Woodson was great that year. Let me put that out first. Great locking up one side of the field. Great kick and punt returning. I'm putting that out there first. However,
offense.
And okay, he played a little bit of offense too. Fine. That still doesn't have the value.
Kick a field goal.
That still doesn't have the value of a quarterback. My point is, I feel like
It's not value. It's the best player. He impacted every phase of the game.
Right.
Every single phase.
Okay.
How's that
All
invaluable?
Okay, I'm gonna get off that argument. My point is,
you know nobody was gonna agree. You know nobody was gonna agree.
No. My point is that
Give
I
this
feel like
man -3. Give him -3 now.
yeah, okay. I'll give myself a -3. I feel like the point is that the argument for Ryan Leaf as a generational quarterback, I feel like that was fabricated. Looking at it now, I don't necessarily know that. Like Lawrence Taylor was a generational talent.
It's easy to say that looking at it now.
No,
because Brian Bosworth was a generational talent at the time. Like
generational talent.
Okay. Now we look at it like he was trash. But
okay.
Back then he was.
Okay. Well, let's look at it from what they've actually done in generational production. So Peyton Manning, Lawrence Taylor, J.J. Watt, Randy Moss,
Adrian Peterson.
Ooh.
Adrian Peterson came out of high school and they were talking about.
Okay, you're right. He came out of.
Can't deny that one.
I'm not a big fan of his game for reasons. Let me finish. He, for somebody with his physical abilities, he's too boom or bust. A lot of his runs get stopped in the backfield, not always the offensive line, and he has no hands. If you're that physically talented, I need you on the field for 3 downs. That's just me. For the sake of this argument, though, I need because
I agree with that.
I need you on the field. I need you on the field 3 downs because when you're on the field, you're basically telling the team more or less that you're going to run.
Mm-hmm.
But he can block. He can block. He's not a great catcher. But he can catch. That year they had Brett Favre, he was catching the ball.
That's true.
So he can catch.
That's
He's
true.
just not. But the opposing view on that is he does so much on every other down that he doesn't need to catch. Why do I need to catch the ball like Matt Forte when I can run for 200 any game?
I mean, because you could catch the ball like Le'Veon Bell and still block like Le'Veon Bell and then run like Le'Veon Bell. And especially
that means he has to get high like Le'Veon Bell.
Maybe
he 5 or 6 years older than Le'Veon Bell.
Maybe he was high when he wept his kids up. All right.
Anyway, come on, man.
My bad.
Come on, man.
My bad. Anyway, okay. For the sake of this argument, all right. Generational talent is Adrian Peterson, and that was 5 players. Who else?
Deion? That's hard.
No,
because I feel like Deion and Bo Jackson would be the same.
He was a generational personality. Deion was a he was a great corner. Like, don't get me wrong. He was more personality.
Okay.
When you talk about that, he's one of the biggest names on defense ever.
Okay. Now, to me, Bo Jackson was generational coming in, but because he didn't have the production due to injury, would you have him as a generational talent now?
No. Bo Jackson is an urban legend.
What about Herschel Walker?
Urban legend. That's if it's true. I saw it. I saw him do it.
No. I mean, I seen it too. but a lot of his production is based on a lot of his hype. His production didn't nearly match that. Like his production is based on a career like what Michael Jordan had or like what LeBron had. And Bo Jackson's famous. I'm not mad at him. But when people talk about the best running backs and things of all time, Bo Jackson isn't at the top of the list. He doesn't have the production nearly to match that. Now, if you're gonna say Bo Jackson was one of the best athletes of all time, I'll be at the front of the line arguing that with you. But one of the best players, which includes production, no.
Okay.
So for the sake of this argument, if we're just looking from the athletic standpoint, yes. From the production standpoint, no.
Okay, I agree with that.
Barry Sanders.
Oh.
I don't know.
I don't know. He's too boomer bust for me too.
Calvin Johnson.
He had the worst offensive line in the history of everything, though. He didn't have a choice.
Him and Adrian Peterson are similar in carrying the team to the playoffs.
I mean, they fought routinely on offensive linemen.
Okay, Jerry Rice.
Oh, yeah.
No. He wasn't a generational talent. He just had unbelievable production.
Okay.
Have you ever been riced? No, you've been mossed. Nobody gets riced.
I think because
Jerry Rice
it's
caught a touchdown pass with 3 fingers in the last year of his career. I mean,
he's a great player. He's the GOAT. But at the same time, I don't see him as a generational talent. He was just really good.
he had that work ethic. He was hard working.
He was a very hard worker.
Jerry Rice made the Pro Bowl with his hairline way back here though. Okay. Like that's got to say something.
Steve Young, longevity. He was good.
I don't know. And that's
Are there any
argument.
Oh, Michael Vick.
He ain't had a production to me.
No, yeah.
No production.
And I'm a 7'5" guy. He didn't have a production.
He didn't have a production.
Talent. Yeah, he
Ooh.
definitely was a generation. Yeah.
So, are there any quarterbacks?
Peyton Manning. I think you don't have. I think that was the only one.
You cannot like Peyton Manning, but he changed.
I like him.
Like, he's generation.
No one else has done what he can do.
Changed the game.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, it's hard to be a quarterback. I mean, because you have to do things that other quarterbacks haven't done, and pretty much all quarterbacks have done the same thing. Brady does what Montana did. You know what I mean? Some quarterbacks throw deep, but the ones who throw deep don't really get recognized as much. Like, I think Steve Young is really – I'm a huge Steve Young fan. He's highly underrated. Best quarterback of the 90s. Not many people did what he did until you saw A-Rod. And A-Rod wasn't the runner Steve Young was. Steve Young was just as accurate as A-Rod, but was a better runner.
It's true.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I got my boy John Elway over him.
I think John
Elway's my dude. Elway's my dude.
I think A-Rod's a generational talent.
That's hard.
But
for me though, it's I hate to say this. I feel like Skip Bayless feels when he's talking about Hall of Fame. Like, if you have to think about it, then they're probably not a generational talent.
I feel
that's true.
But what does he do from who have we seen in NFL history combines? And I know I just said Steve Young, but Steve Young? No, I mean
John Elway.
John Elway wasn't nearly as accurate as A-Rod is.
He wasn't as accurate, but yeah, I guess so. You're right.
I mean,
I guess
and I guess just seeing some of the throws A-Rod makes. My goodness, man! Like, I've never seen a quarterback make the throws that he does 60 yards down the field, moving the opposite way, flicking his wrist.
So
that's true.
That don't make him generational.
But Jamarcus Russell can throw it 100 yards flicking his wrist too.
But Jamarcus Russell couldn't throw the pass and complete it to you if he was 5 yards from you. So, you know.
Is there one at each? I'm trying to think, man. Now it's hard.
Right? And then if we look at defense, my first thought was Lawrence Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think J.J. Watt. I can't really think of another and there have been some great ones.
Warren Sapp, would he be? Because he changed it. He's the reason we have Aaron Donald now.
But what's different? Okay, but what's different between him and John Randall? Now that's a throwback.
John Randall was that.
John Randall.
But
John Randall, what was it? Wasn't he like a late round pick? John Randall wasn't a guy coming out.
Yeah, he was a late round pick.
But what's really the difference between Sapp and Randall?
Randall was small. He was like 5'10", 5'11". Warren Sapp is big.
Small.
Yeah, John Randall wasn't a big dude.
He was able to do things because his quickness.
Was a different size lineman.
Sapp was big, and he was able to do the smaller guys.
See, that's what I mean. It's hard to think of defensive players. Like I know this is far fetched.
And Reed.
I was going to say
Polamalu.
No, not Troy.
That was Ed Reed.
Ed Reed. Sean Taylor, for his short-lived, he might.
That would be the person.
Too short.
That would be one person because the year before he got killed, that was the season. He just basically did a cam. I think he was more hyped in production before. He was more hits than being a complete package. That last year before he got killed, that's when he finally put it all together. I would put him in there. I would put him in there posthumously.
Only problem is
What?
he doesn't have long enough to say
Yeah.
generational. But
Yeah,
Ed
that'd be
Reed was
the-
that dude for a
Did we
long
say
time,
no to Ed Reed?
and Ed
Did we say
Reed
no
was
to
the
Ed Reed?
overall safety.
Ed Reed was that dude from day one.
Ed Reed to me
He was a
is the
dude.
best two-way safety there's ever been. So he's got to be on the list.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know.
You
I
don't-
kind of disagree
Name
on that.
another safety. Name another all-around safety like
Rob
Ed
Woodson.
Reed. who
Well,
could've-
Rob Woodson was a
Rod
quarterback.
I was going to say he
But
was
Rob
Rod
Woodson
Woodson.
played. But Rob Woodson
He
played
was
safety. But Rob Woodson played safety.
Converted
So if we go,
safety.
but
So did
listen,
Charles Woodson. Converted
Okay.
safety. Come on.
and listen, I'm a huge Rob Woodson fan. Not many people did it the way that he did it. So I mean, if
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna
think
put
Ed Reed
any defensive back there, I would put Rob Woodson before, because Rob Woodson was the guy who was running the picks back. He led the NFL history in interception yardage for a season, I think, before Ed Reed broke it.
We can't
So-
say
But Ed Reed, man, he did
don't
that.
know.
But he did that at corner as well, though. Ed Reed was strictly safety.
That's true.
So I
Yeah.
guess, but if you think about it that way, the ability of Rod Woodson to do it at corner and then switch to safety and do it at safety, that I guess that
Woodson
would
did
be
the same
changed.
thing though. Charles Woodson changed.
Maybe it's the name. Maybe it's the name. It's the Woodson name.
When Charles Woodson went to the Packers, he made the Pro Bowl playing at safety.
Safety.
Ridiculous.
He won
That's
Defensive
true.
Player of the Year, didn't he? As a safety?
Something
No, I
like
think he
that.
was
Was it 09? He
I
won
think
it in 09, didn't he?
Wasn't he a
I think he
cornerback
was
then?
Nuh-uh, because he was with the when he went to the Packers, he was I think he was playing nickel and safety.
Then safety, yeah. He was nickel, then a safety for the Packers.
What
He
about
was that dude, though.
what about Derek Thomas?
Oh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a huge Derek Thomas fan, so.
I'm a huge fan, but I don't know about.
Generational, like I
I don't think he did what Junior Seau did. I don't think he was as good as Junior Seau was.
Well, they did different things. What about
But
what I'm saying-
is there a linebacker though, other than a pass rusher? Like, would there be?
I don't think
Zach
so.
Thomas.
I don't think. Zach Thomas.
no?
It's too hard because you're not gonna find a linebacker that can stop the run and stop the pass and make plays. Like you're not.
And they
there's
weren't
never been a
generational.
linebacker
They were great, but they weren't generational. Like the two biggest ones
Yeah,
I
you're
can
not-
think of who were middle linebackers would be Urlacher and Ray Lewis.
And Ray
I wouldn't
Lewis.
put either one of them in there.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't.
Patrick Lewis is kind of on that same list.
What about Dwight Freeney?
No.
He's good though, but not generational.
Okay. Derek Brooks.
I'd say yes to Derek Brooks.
And see, I think he revolutionized the linebacker position because he was the first real. He was the first real.
Work.
Exactly. He was the first real, in recent memory, coverage linebacker who also could stop the run and whenever they asked him to rush the passer. He played a different role. He wasn't necessarily a pass rusher, but he was great in coverage and great against the run.
I think he was great. I think he did
I
all
think
that
Patrick
well.
Peterson can be one. I think Patrick Peterson, if he puts up the production, he will be. Like
was
coming
about
in
Devin
with his
Hester.
prototypical
Devin
size.
Hester.
Devin Hester.
Hester.
Oh yeah, he's in there as a returner.
As a returner.
Right?
As a returner.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, I was
he
gonna say,
ain't nothing.
He's
No
the
one's even
only
close to
returner.
him. He's
Like
ridiculous.
there was never a pure returner like that. Oh, actually, that one dude from the Chiefs. I can't remember his name.
Dante Hall.
I remember Dante Hall because he made the Broncos
Dante.
look like crap. Oh man, that return was amazing. But I was like, man, that. But yeah, there's not that many generational players in the last 20 years that I can really think of that just off the bat.
Well, think about it. 20 years. That's only like one generation.
Doing two, yeah. Well, from
it's
a
hard to
football
have
standpoint,
a
it's
lot.
probably closer to two.
Yeah,
20
it's
years
just
to take
hard to
us
have a
back
lot
to
of
what?
generational.
96? From 96 to now?
Yeah, I'd say that's two generations, really.
Yeah. The 90s and now we're in the 10s. Those two different.
Mm-hmm.
I
different
always forget, man. 15 years ago, we're still in the 2000s. So
Yeah.
Yep.
this is ridiculous.
Anthony Munoz.
I would say the only lineman I would put in there would probably like what? Orlando
Jonathan
Pace?
Ogden?
Oh, Jonathan Ogden.
John Ogden. I think Tyron Smith has the ability to be one.
Yes.
I love him. Pace, Ogden, Walter Jones too. If we're doing offensive linemen, if we're doing offensive linemen, Walter Jones. Larry Allen.
He was just big, man.
He was just big though.
I don't know. Like Larry Allen was the strongest recorded human being like in NFL history. Like I don't know if that's just being a regular human being.
Yeah, that's I don't know. It's hard. I think this is one we could probably go on and on and on about. We may try to go live maybe sometime this week and rejoin this discussion, but I think we've gone well beyond an hour or 2 hours actually. So I think it's about time to sign off. On behalf of Sports Politicen, I want to thank you guys for whatever it is you guys do.
You think you're gonna be long time? Because I need to go to the store. I have to go get the fish.
Guys, y'all want to say goodbye?
Anyone who stuck with us for this whole 2 hour talk, thanks for staying with us. But this is one of the best ones here.
Yeah, definitely. All right, everybody. See y'all next week.